Good evening, and welcome to Easy Drift Sleep. Tonight your story takes you to the raising of Lazarus, a world full of quiet wonder. Before we begin, if you find rest here, subscribing means a new story is always waiting for you. Now close the day behind you, and let us begin. The Judean sun, a relentless, ancient eye, beat down upon the village of Bethany, baking the narrow paths a pale, dusty ochre. It was a place cradled gently on the eastern slope of the Mount of Olives, just a 2-mile walk from the bustling, often tumultuous, city of Jerusalem, yet it felt a world away, steeped in its own quiet rhythms. Here, the air often carried the comforting scent of baking bread from sun-warmed ovens, mingling with the dry, sweet perfume of olive trees and the distant, plaintive bleating of sheep grazing on rocky slopes. It was a village of simple, stone-hewn homes, where life unfolded with a predictable grace, until, that is, the shadow began to fall. For days, a disquieting hush had settled over the usually vibrant household of Lazarus and his sisters, Martha and Mary. The familiar sounds of Martha's bustling efficiency, the clatter of pottery, the rhythmic thud of dough being kneaded, had grown faint, replaced by an anxious quietude. Lazarus, a man known throughout Bethany for his quiet piety and gentle spirit, his generous hospitality a beacon to travelers and friends alike, had been struck down by a sudden, virulent sickness. It had come upon him with the swift, cruel force of a desert storm, stealing his strength, clouding his eyes, and leaving him breathless on his pallet. Martha, the elder sister, her hands usually busy with the endless tasks of maintaining their home, now moved with a frantic, desperate energy. Her brow was perpetually furrowed, etched with the deep lines of worry that had appeared almost overnight. She was a woman of practical action, her faith robust and unwavering, yet she found herself battling a growing sense of helplessness, a gnawing fear that even her tireless efforts could not ward off the inevitable. She had tried every remedy known to her, every poultice, every herbal infusion, but Lazarus only grew weaker, his breath coming in shallow, ragged gasps. His once kind eyes, usually bright with a gentle humor, had become dull, shadowed with pain and a distant, unsettling awareness. Mary, the younger sister, usually found at the feet of a teacher or lost in quiet contemplation, now clung to her brother's bedside, her heart a raw, aching wound. Her devotion to Lazarus was profound, a deep, unspoken bond that had always anchored her. She watched his labored breathing, each exhalation a fresh stab of pain in her own chest, her fingers often stroking his fevered brow, a silent plea for solace. Her eyes, usually luminous with an inner light, were now perpetually red-rimmed, swollen from endless weeping, her posture slumped with a grief that had begun to consume her even before the final breath had been drawn. She remembered the last time Lazarus had truly smiled, just a few days before, as he recounted a story of a traveler he had helped on the road to Jericho, his voice warm and steady. Now, that voice was a mere whisper, barely audible above the frantic beating of her own heart. Their most fervent hope, their desperate prayer, had been for Jesus, their beloved friend, to come. Messengers had been dispatched, swift and urgent, carrying the plea, "Lord, behold, he whom you love is sick." They knew Jesus loved Lazarus, deeply and truly, and they had witnessed his power, his ability to heal the sick, to cast out demons, to bring comfort to the afflicted. Surely, he would come, and with his presence, Lazarus would be restored. Martha, ever the pragmatist, believed that if Jesus were only there, Lazarus would not die. Mary, with her deep, intuitive faith, simply yearned for his comforting presence, knowing that even his shadow could bring peace. But Jesus did not come. Days bled into one another, marked only by the escalating severity of Lazarus's illness and the deepening despair of his sisters. The sun continued its relentless journey across the sky, indifferent to the suffering below, each sunrise bringing a fresh wave of agony, each sunset a chilling premonition. The air in the small, stone house grew heavy, thick with the scent of sickness, of sweat, of fear. The silence, broken only by Lazarus's struggling breaths and the sisters' hushed prayers, became a suffocating blanket. Then, on the fourth day of his illness, as the sun began its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of orange and violet, the final, agonizing breath left Lazarus's body. A profound stillness descended upon the room, a silence so absolute it seemed to swallow all sound, all hope. Martha, who had been holding his hand, felt the last tremor of life leave him, the warmth fading, replaced by a chilling coolness. Mary, her head bowed against his chest, heard the final, faint beat of his heart, a sound that echoed the death knell in her own soul. The wailing began then, a primal, heart-rending sound that tore through the quiet evening air. It was Mary who first let out a cry, a raw, guttural expression of her shattered world, a sound that quickly mingled with Martha's own choked sobs. Soon, neighbors and friends, who had been waiting with bated breath, their faces grim with unspoken sympathy, gathered at the house. The professional mourners, their services a grim necessity in such times, arrived shortly after, their mournful wailing adding a haunting, almost theatrical, layer to the genuine grief. Their cries, long and drawn out, carried on the evening breeze, a lament that spoke of loss and the fragility of life, echoing across the olive groves and down the dusty paths of Bethany. The preparations for burial were swift, dictated by custom and the oppressive heat of the climate. Lazarus's body, now utterly still, was washed and anointed with fragrant spices, then carefully wrapped in grave clothes, strips of linen binding him from head to foot, leaving only his face uncovered for a final farewell. Martha moved through the motions with a numb efficiency, her grief a cold, heavy stone in her chest, while Mary, her face a mask of profound sorrow, could barely tear her eyes from her brother's peaceful, yet unnervingly still, countenance. He looked as if he were merely sleeping, a serene expression on his face, but the coldness of his skin, the absence of breath, spoke of an irreversible departure. The tomb, a cool, dark cave hewn from the leaving rock, awaited him. It was a familiar landmark, a family burial place, located just outside the village, nestled among the gnarled olive trees. The air within it was always cool, even on the hottest days, carrying the dry, earthy scent of ancient rock and dust, a scent that now mingled with the faint, unsettling odor of decay that had already begun to cling to Lazarus's body, a stark reminder of mortality's swift embrace. With heavy hearts and labored breaths, the men of the village carried Lazarus's body to its final resting place. The sisters followed, their steps slow and faltering, their world having irrevocably shifted. The heavy stone, a massive disc that required several strong men to roll, was positioned to seal the entrance of the tomb, a grim, unyielding barrier between the living and the dead. The sound of stone scraping against rock echoed in the quiet air, a final, definitive pronouncement. For days had passed since Lazarus had been laid in that tomb. For days of the Judean sun rising and setting, for days of the village of Bethany continuing its leave, albeit with a somber pall hanging over it. For days of Martha's practical mind grappling with the stark reality of death, her faith tested by the absence of Jesus, the one who could have prevented this. For days of Mary's tears flowing freely, her heart broken, her devotion to her brother now a profound ache. The scent of spices, meant to ward off the inevitable, had begun to fade, replaced by the unmistakable, chilling scent of decay that seeped from the sealed tomb, a constant, visceral reminder of death's triumph. The shadow that had fallen over Bethany was not merely the shadow of grief, but the shadow of finality, of an ending that seemed absolute. The village, usually a haven of peace, now held a quiet unease, a collective sorrow for the beloved Lazarus. And still, Jesus had not come. His absence, in their greatest hour of need, was a perplexing, painful mystery, adding another layer of sorrow to the already unbearable weight of their loss. The sisters, in their individual ways, wrestled with their faith, with their understanding of God's timing, with the crushing reality that their brother, the one whom Jesus loved, was gone, irrevocably, profoundly gone. The oppressive heat of the Judean sun, usually a familiar, comforting presence, now felt like a suffocating blanket, pressing down on the small, dusty village of Bethany. It baked the ochre earth, shimmered above the gnarled olive trees, and seemed to amplify the silence that had fallen over the home of Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. For 3 days, that silence had been punctuated only by the low murmurs of sympathetic neighbors, the rustle of Martha's restless movements, and the quiet, persistent weeping of Mary. The air, once sweet with the scent of baking bread, now carried the faint, metallic tang of fear and the heavy, cloying perfume of grief. Martha, ever the pragmatist, had moved with a frantic energy in the initial hours of Lazarus's illness, her hands busy, her mind racing. She had brewed bitter herbal teas, cooled his fevered brow with damp cloths, and whispered prayers with an intensity that bordered on demand. Her practical nature, however, could not stem the tide of the sickness that ravaged her brother, stealing his breath, dimming the light in his eyes. As his condition worsened, a desperate, undeniable thought had taken root in her mind, a thought that blossomed into a fragile, desperate hope: Jesus. He had healed so many, surely he would heal Lazarus, the one he loved so dearly. It was Mary, her face already streaked with tears, who had first voiced the urgent need to send for him. "We must send word," she had pleaded, her voice a raw whisper, her eyes fixed on her brother's weakening form. "He must know. He will come." Martha, her heart a tangled knot of fear and faith, had agreed instantly. They had chosen a swift, reliable messenger, a young man from the village known for his endurance and discretion. He had been given a simple, yet profound, message, one that carried the full weight of their love, their trust, and their burgeoning despair. "Lord, behold, he whom you love is sick." The messenger had departed with the urgency of a desperate prayer, a fleeting shadow against the setting sun, his footsteps kicking up dust on the path leading east, towards the Jordan. Martha had watched him go, her hands clasped tightly, a flicker of hope illuminating her weary face. Mary, meanwhile, had returned to Lazarus's side, her slender fingers tracing the lines of his fevered hand, her silent tears falling onto his pallid skin. They had waited, their hearts suspended between the fading hope of a miracle and the encroaching shadow of inevitable loss. The hours had stretched into a day, then two, each moment a slow, agonizing drip of time. Lazarus's breathing grew shallower, his fever raged, and the light in his eyes, which had always held such warmth and kindness, receded further and further. The sisters clung to each other, their shared grief a heavy, suffocating cloak. Martha continued to move, tending to the house, preparing what little food they could stomach, her movement stiff with unspoken anxiety. Mary, however, had retreated into a profound stillness, her world shrinking to the small space around her brother's bed, her gaze rarely leaving his face. She spoke in hushed tones, recalling shared memories, whispering endearments, as if her love alone could somehow anchor him to leave. Then, on the third day, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the western sky in hues of fiery orange and bruised purple, Lazarus had drawn his last, shuddering breath. A profound silence, heavier than any before, had descended upon the room. Mary's soft sobs had erupted into a raw, guttural cry, a sound that tore at Martha's very soul. Martha, for a moment, had stood frozen, her practical mind grappling with the incomprehensible finality of it all. Her brother, her beloved brother, was gone. The hope she had nurtured, the desperate plea she had sent, had been unanswered. He had not come. The days that followed were a blur of sorrow and tradition. The professional mourners, women with voices trained to express the deepest anguish, arrived, their keening cries echoing through the narrow streets of Bethany, a mournful counterpoint to the sisters' private agony. The air grew thick with the scent of spices and the heavy perfume of myrrh, used to prepare the body for burial. Neighbors and friends came and went, offering condolences, their faces etched with sympathy, their hushed voices adding to the somber atmosphere. Lazarus's body had been wrapped in linen cloths, anointed with fragrant oils, and carried to the family tomb, a cool, dark cave hewn from the rock on the hillside. The heavy stone had been rolled into place, sealing him away, sealing their hopes, sealing their world in an impenetrable darkness. For days had passed since the messenger had departed, for days since Lazarus had first fallen ill, and now, for days since he had been laid in the tomb. The sun continued its relentless cycle, but for Martha and Mary, time had ceased to hold meaning. Grief was a physical weight, pressing down on their chests, making each breath an effort. The initial shock had given way to a dull, aching pain, a constant throb behind their eyes, in their hearts. It was on this fourth day, as the first rays of morning light began to warm the eastern slopes of the Mount of Olives, that news finally arrived. News that stirred the dust of their sorrow, that brought a flicker of something akin to anger to Martha's weary eyes. Jesus was coming. He was on his way, having lingered, it seemed, in the region beyond the Jordan, where he had been teaching. When the messenger, a different one this time, relayed the news, Martha felt a jolt, a strange mix of relief and resentment. Relief that he was finally approaching, resentment that he had delayed so long. Her practical mind, accustomed to order and promptness, could not comprehend such a delay. Lazarus had been sick, then he had died, and now, for days later, Jesus was coming. What purpose could this serve? What comfort could he offer now that the finality of death had settled like a shroud over their home? Without a word to Mary, who still sat in a quiet, tearful vigil, Martha rose. Her movements were stiff, her joints aching, but a renewed sense of purpose, albeit a conflicted one, propelled her forward. She needed to meet him, to understand, to perhaps even voice the question that burned in her heart: why? She walked quickly, her sandals stirring the fine dust of the path, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon from which he would appear. The air was still cool from the night, carrying the faint scent of dew on dry earth. Her mind raced, rehearsing the words she would speak, the questions she would ask. She was not angry, not truly, but deeply, profoundly bewildered. Meanwhile, Jesus had been teaching and healing in Perea, a region across the Jordan River. The message from Bethany had reached him there, carried by the swift messenger who had delivered the urgent plea, "Lord, behold, he whom you love is sick." The disciples, gathered around Jesus, had watched his face as he listened, expecting an immediate departure, a swift journey back to the beloved friends in Bethany. After all, Lazarus was not just an acquaintance, he was a cherished friend, a man Jesus loved. But Jesus had not moved with the expected urgency. Instead, a profound stillness had settled upon him. He had looked out across the sun-drenched landscape, his gaze distant, his expression unreadable. Then, in a voice that held both compassion and an unwavering certainty, he had said, "This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it." The words had hung in the air, a puzzling paradox. Not unto death? Yet the message implied dire illness, a rapid decline. The disciples exchanged confused glances. They knew Jesus loved Lazarus, Martha, and Mary deeply. They had witnessed his affection for them on their previous visits to Bethany, the quiet comfort he found in their home. Why, then, this delay? For 2 more days, Jesus had remained in the same place, continuing his teaching, his parables flowing with their usual grace and wisdom, but his presence now carried a subtle undercurrent of something profound, something deeply significant yet unspoken. The disciples, accustomed to his sudden shifts in direction, his immediate responses to need, found his inaction perplexing, even unsettling. They whispered among themselves, their concern for Lazarus growing with each passing hour. After those 2 days, Jesus had turned to his disciples, his eyes holding a knowing depth. "Let us go to Judea again," he had announced, his voice calm but resolute. A ripple of apprehension had passed through the group. Judea, Jerusalem, the very place where the religious leaders had recently sought to stone him, where his life had been in constant peril. The memory of their last, hurried departure from Jerusalem was still fresh, the stone still felt heavy in their minds. Rabbi Thomas, also known as Didymus, had interjected, his voice carrying a note of caution, "The Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and are you going there again?" Thomas, ever the pragmatist, the one who often voiced the unspoken fears of the group, saw only the immediate danger. His mind, though loyal, was prone to envisioning the worst-case scenario, the tangible threats that lay ahead. He remembered the hostile crowds, the venomous accusations, the very real possibility of violence. Going back to Judea felt like walking into a trap. Jesus had met his gaze, a gentle understanding in his eyes. "Are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if one walks in the night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him. His words were a veiled reference to his divine purpose, his unwavering resolve, a truth that transcended their earthly fears. He was implying that his time was not yet done, that his mission was guided by a higher light, and that he would not stumble until that light was extinguished by his own will. Then, with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of human sorrow, he had added, "Our friend Lazarus sleeps, but I go that I may wake him up." The disciples, still grappling with the earlier paradox, found themselves further confused. Sleeps? Had the messenger perhaps exaggerated the severity of Lazarus's illness? Was he merely resting, recovering? "Lord, if he sleeps, he will recover," they had reasoned, their voices tinged with a hopeful relief. Perhaps the danger was not as great as they had imagined. Perhaps their fears for Jesus' safety were unfounded, if Lazarus was merely in a deep slumber. But Jesus, knowing the truth that lay beyond their understanding, had clarified, his voice now imbued with a solemn gravity. "Lazarus is dead." The words had fallen like stones into the quiet air, shattering their fragile hopes, confirming their deepest fears. Dead. Not sleeping, not recovering, but irrevocably gone. A wave of shock had passed through the disciples. The delay, the puzzling words, the journey into danger, to it all began to coalesce into a terrifying, yet profound, realization. Jesus had then continued, his gaze sweeping over each of their faces, "And I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, that you may believe. Nevertheless, let us go to him." Glad? The word seemed incongruous, almost cruel, in the face of such loss. Yet, there was an unmistakable certainty in his tone, a hint of a greater purpose, a truth yet to be revealed that would transcend their current understanding. He spoke of belief, of a revelation that would solidify their faith in a way that a simple healing could not. It was then that Thomas, his face etched with a mixture of fear and unwavering loyalty, had spoken again. His voice was low, almost a murmur, but it carried a profound weight of resignation and courage. "Let us also go, that we may die with him." He did not say die with Lazarus, but die with him, referring to Jesus. Thomas, with his characteristic pessimism, foresaw only danger in Judea. He believed that if Jesus returned to Jerusalem, he would surely face death, and if Jesus was to die, then Thomas, despite his fears, would not abandon him. It was a declaration of loyalty, born not of blind optimism, but of a grim, determined devotion. And so, the journey had begun. Each step they took brought them closer to Bethany, closer to the grieving sisters, closer to the sealed tomb, and closer, perhaps, to the very edge of the impossible. The sun beat down, the dust rose with their footsteps, and the air grew heavy with unspoken questions, with the weight of impending revelation. The disciples, their hearts a mixture of trepidation and a nascent, unformed hope, followed Jesus, their minds grappling with the profound mystery of his delay, the stark reality of Lazarus's death, and the unsettling promise of what was to come. They walked towards a place of profound sorrow, unaware that they were also walking towards a moment that would forever redefine their understanding of life, death, and the very nature of their Lord. The road to Bethany stretched before them, a ribbon of sun-baked earth winding through the Judean wilderness, each step raising a fine dust that clung to their sandals and the hems of their tunics. The air, thick and still, shimmered with the oppressive heat of the afternoon sun, a relentless golden hammer beating down upon the parched landscape. Olive trees, gnarled and ancient, offered only meager, dappled shade, their silver-green leaves rustling with a dry, whispering sound that seemed to carry the weight of unspoken anxieties. For 2 long days, they had walked, their journey punctuated by the rhythmic crunch of gravel underfoot and the distant, mournful cry of a hawk circling high above. Jesus walked with a quiet, unyielding determination, his gaze fixed on some unseen point beyond the horizon, a profound sorrow etched around his eyes, yet his bearing remained one of serene authority. He knew the path they trod was not merely a physical one, but a journey into the very heart of human grief and divine revelation. He felt the tremor of fear that ran through his disciples, a palpable current of apprehension that intensified with every mile they drew closer to Jerusalem, to Bethany. He understood their reluctance, their deep-seated dread of returning to a place where shadows of hostility lengthened with each passing day, where the whispers of plots and accusations against him grew ever louder, ever more menacing. Among them, Thomas, often called Didymus, felt the familiar knot of unease tightening in his stomach, a cold dread that spread through his limbs. He was a man who preferred certainty, who sought tangible proof, and this journey felt like a plunge into the deepest, most unpredictable waters. His brow furrowed beneath the dust-streaked strands of his hair, his eyes, usually keen and observant, now held a haunted, faraway look. He remembered the last time they had been in Judea, the thinly veiled threats, the furious faces in the crowds, the very real danger that had forced them to retreat across the Jordan. Now, they were turning back, directly into the lion's den, and for what? For a dead man, a friend who had already been in the tomb for days. "Master," Thomas began, his voice a low, gravelly murmur, barely audible above the shuffling of feet and the distant drone of cicadas. He walked a little closer to Jesus, his gaze sweeping the desolate, rocky terrain, as if searching for hidden dangers among the thorny scrub and scattered boulders. "Rabbi, only recently the people of Judea sought to stone you, and are you going there again?" His question hung in the hot air, not a challenge, but a desperate plea, a raw expression of his fear. It was a fear not only for Jesus, but for himself and for all of them, for the very real possibility of their own demise. He imagined the stones flying, the shouts of the angry mob, the swift, brutal end to their mission. The thought sent a shiver down his spine, despite the oppressive heat. A few of the other disciples murmured in agreement, their faces reflecting Thomas's apprehension. They exchanged worried glances, their hands instinctively touching the small, rough pouches at their belts, as if to reassure themselves of the meager possessions they carried, the only things that tied them to a life they might soon lose. They had left their homes, their families, their livelihoods, to follow this extraordinary man, and now, it felt as though that devotion was leading them directly to their doom. Jesus paused, turning slowly to face them, his eyes, deep and knowing, resting first on Thomas, then sweeping over the anxious faces of the others. A gentle, almost sorrowful smile touched his lips, a smile that held both profound compassion for their human frailty and an unwavering certainty in his divine purpose. "Are there not 12 hours in the day?" he asked, his voice calm and steady, a soothing balm against their rising panic. If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him. His words, though seemingly simple, carried a deeper meaning that resonated in the quiet of the wilderness. He spoke of a different kind of light, a divine illumination that guided his steps, a purpose that transcended the earthly dangers that loomed before them. He was not walking blindly into peril. He was walking in the light of his Father's will, and that light, he implied, would protect them, at least until his appointed time. Yet, Thomas remained unconvinced, his practical mind grappling with the stark reality of their situation. The light of the Judean sun did not deter the angry crowds, nor did it deflect the stones. He saw only the gathering shadows of human malice, the tangible threat of violence. He respected Jesus' unwavering faith, but his own heart pounded with a more earthly fear. He had witnessed the hostility, felt the chill of rejection in Jerusalem, and the memory was a fresh wound. He thought of the quiet leave he had left behind, the simple rhythms of fishing, the comfort of familiar faces. Now, all that seemed a distant dream, replaced by the harsh reality of this dangerous journey. As they continued their trek, the sun began its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of fiery orange and deep crimson, casting long, dramatic shadows across the rugged landscape. The air, though still warm, began to lose its oppressive intensity, replaced by a subtle coolness that hinted at the approaching evening. The scent of wild thyme and dry earth filled the air, mingled with the faint, sweet perfume of distant oleanders. They made camp that night in a shallow, rocky hollow, the stars beginning to prick the deepening indigo of the sky with brilliant points of light. A small fire crackled merrily, its warmth a welcome comfort against the desert chill that quickly followed the sunset. The disciples sat in a circle, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames, their conversation hushed and subdued. They ate their simple meal of dried figs and unleavened bread, but the usual camaraderie was muted by the unspoken anxieties that weighed heavily upon them. Thomas sat a little apart, gnawing on a piece of bread, his gaze fixed on the flickering flames. He thought of Lazarus, of the gentle man with the kind eyes, the brother of Mary and Martha, who had always welcomed them into his home in Bethany. He remembered the warmth of their hospitality, the laughter shared around their table, the sense of peace that always seemed to pervade that quiet household. And now, Lazarus was gone, dead for 4 days, his body already succumbing to the inevitable decay of the grave. What purpose could there be in this journey now? What good could Jesus possibly do? He knew Jesus possessed extraordinary power, had seen him heal the sick, cast out demons, even calm the raging sea. But death? Death was final, an impenetrable wall, a boundary that no man, no matter how powerful, had ever truly crossed. The stories of Elijah and Elisha raising the dead were ancient tales, almost mythical, and even then, they were not of those who had been in the tomb for so long. For days was an eternity in the face of death. The very thought of it sent a shiver through him. Yet, despite his profound apprehension, despite the cold grip of fear that threatened to paralyze him, a stubborn resolve began to stir within Thomas. He looked at Jesus, who sat quietly by the fire, his face serene, his eyes reflecting the flames, yet seeming to gaze into a realm far beyond their understanding. He had seen Jesus' compassion, his unwavering love for humanity, his absolute commitment to his Father's will. And Thomas, for all his doubts and fears, was loyal. He had chosen to follow this man, to dedicate his life to him, and he would not abandon him now, not even in the face of death. He remembered Jesus' earlier words about Lazarus, about his sleeping. He had spoken of going to awaken him. The words had seemed so strange, so out of place, given the certainty of Lazarus' death. But Jesus often spoke in parables, in layers of meaning that only later revealed their full truth. Could there be something more to this? A glimmer of a possibility, faint and fragile, sparked within Thomas's heart, quickly overshadowed by his more dominant fear. He rose slowly, stretching his stiff limbs, and walked over to where the other disciples sat, their faces etched with similar worries. He looked at Peter, whose usual boisterous confidence seemed to have dimmed, his gaze downcast. He looked at John, whose youthful enthusiasm was tempered by a quiet solemnity. They were all afraid, he realized, but they were also all here, still following. Thomas cleared his throat, his voice still low, but now imbued with a new, quiet strength, a grim determination that cut through the hushed anxiety. "Let us also go," he declared, his gaze sweeping over their faces, meeting each pair of eyes with his own resolute stare. "That we may die with him." His words hung in the night air, stark and uncompromising, a testament to his loyalty, even in the face of what he believed to be inevitable doom. It was not a cry of triumph, but a quiet, almost despairing acceptance of their shared fate. If Jesus was determined to walk into danger, then Thomas, for all his fears, would walk with him, even if it meant laying down his own life. It was a choice born not of blind faith, but of a profound, if fearful, commitment to the man he had chosen to follow. He would face the stones, the angry crowds, the very real possibility of death, because he could not, would not, abandon his master. A ripple of surprise, then a flicker of understanding, passed through the other disciples. They looked at Thomas, the man who so often questioned, who so often saw the worst-case scenario, and they saw in his words a raw, unvarnished courage. It was a courage born of deep affection and unwavering loyalty, a courage that resonated with their own unspoken fears and their own quiet resolve. If Thomas, the pragmatist, the doubter, was willing to face death, then perhaps they too could find the strength within themselves. A quiet nod passed between them, a silent agreement that solidified their collective resolve. The fear had not vanished, but it was now tempered by a shared determination. They would go to Bethany, to Judea, to whatever awaited them there. They would walk with Jesus, come what may. The fire crackled, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to stretch and twist like the uncertainties that lay ahead. The stars above, countless and serene, bore silent witness to their quiet pact, to the profound blend of apprehension and resolve that now settled over the small band of followers. The next morning, as the first rays of the sun painted the eastern sky in soft hues of rose and gold, they rose and continued their journey. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the fresh scent of dew-kissed earth. The landscape began to change subtly as they drew closer to Bethany. The rugged, desolate wilderness gave way to more cultivated land, scattered olive groves, and the occasional vineyard, their trellises heavy with ripening grapes. The distant bleating of sheep carried on the gentle breeze, a sound of ordinary leave that seemed almost incongruous with the gravity of their mission. They passed small groups of travelers on the dusty road, their faces curious, some recognizing Jesus and whispering among themselves. The disciples walked with a renewed sense of purpose, their earlier apprehension now infused with a quiet, almost grim determination. Thomas walked a little straighter, his gaze still watchful, but his jaw set with a new resolve. He had made his choice, and now he would see it through. As the sun climbed higher, casting its golden light over the rolling hills, they began to discern the familiar outlines of Bethany in the distance. Nestled on the eastern slope of the Mount of Olives, it was a cluster of simple, sun-baked homes, their flat roofs blending with the dusty landscape. The air, as they drew closer, began to carry the faint, sweet scent of baking bread, mingling with the earthy aroma of olive oil and the distant, mournful wail of professional mourners. The sound, carried on the gentle breeze, was a chilling reminder of their purpose, a stark confirmation of the sorrow that awaited them. It was a long, drawn-out lament, a haunting melody of grief that spoke of loss and despair. The disciples exchanged uneasy glances, the sound piercing through their hard-won resolve, stirring the embers of their fear once more. The reality of Lazarus's death, of the profound sorrow that had enveloped his family, now pressed in upon them with an undeniable weight. Jesus, hearing the mournful cries, paused for a moment, his shoulders slumping almost imperceptibly, a profound sadness clouding his eyes. He felt the pain of Mary and Martha, the raw anguish of their loss, as if it were his own. His compassion, deep and boundless, flowed outwards, encompassing the grieving household, the entire village. He knew the depth of their sorrow, the sting of death, and he bore it with them, even as he prepared to confront it. The path narrowed, winding through ancient olive trees, their twisted branches offering pockets of cool shade. The air grew heavier, thick with the scent of dust and the palpable atmosphere of mourning. They could now see figures moving around one of the houses, a small gathering of people, their heads bowed, their movements slow and somber. The wailing grew louder, more distinct, a symphony of sorrow that echoed through the quiet village. Thomas felt a tremor run through him. This was it. The moment of truth. He gripped the rough fabric of his tunic, his heart pounding a slow, heavy rhythm against his ribs. He had faced his fear, had made his choice, but the reality of death, of grief, was a powerful, unsettling force. He looked at Jesus, who now walked with a renewed, almost urgent pace, his gaze fixed on the grieving household, his face a mask of sorrow and unwavering purpose. They were no longer just walking towards danger, they were walking towards a profound sorrow, towards a moment that would test their faith, challenge their understanding, and ultimately, redefine everything they thought they knew about life, death, and the extraordinary man who led them. The journey to Bethany was complete, and the stage was set for a revelation that would shake the very foundations of their world. The dust of the Bethany road, fine and pale beneath the afternoon sun, clung to the sandals of Jesus and his disciples as they approached the village, a quiet hum of distant lamentation already reaching their ears. The air, usually redolent with the sweet scent of fig trees and baking bread, now carried a heavier, more somber fragrance, the unmistakable tang of sorrow, of wood smoke from cooking fires, and the faint, earthy breath of the tomb. The village itself seemed to hold its breath, every doorway a shadowed frame for hushed conversations, every window a dark eye reflecting the pervasive grief. As they drew closer, the mournful wail of professional mourners, a haunting, undulating sound, grew clearer, weaving through the narrow streets like a sorrowful thread. It mingled with the quiet, broken sobs that drifted from the direction of Martha and Mary's home, a sound that spoke of a loss too profound for words. The Judean sun, usually a source of life and warmth, now beat down with an almost oppressive weight, casting long, stark shadows that seemed to deepen the sense of despair hanging over the small community. The disciples, their faces etched with a mixture of apprehension and weariness from the journey, exchanged uneasy glances. They had followed Jesus into many challenging situations, but this felt different, a confrontation not with human adversaries, but with the cold, unyielding finality of death itself. Their hearts were heavy, burdened by the knowledge of Lazarus's passing and the palpable sorrow that now enveloped his sisters. Jesus, however, walked with a quiet, resolute grace, his gaze fixed on the grieving household, his face a mask of sorrow and unwavering purpose. He understood the depth of the pain that awaited them, the raw, unvarnished agony of a family torn asunder by loss. He felt the weight of their grief, a burden that seemed to settle upon his own shoulders even before he reached their door. They were no longer just walking towards danger, they were walking towards a profound sorrow, towards a moment that would test their faith, challenge their understanding, and ultimately, redefine everything they thought they knew about life, death, and the extraordinary man who led them. The journey to Bethany was complete, and the stage was set for a revelation that would shake the very foundations of their world. A young boy, perhaps no older than 10, his eyes wide with the solemnity of the occasion, was the first to spot them. He had been sent to fetch water from the village well, his small amphora clutched tightly in his hand, but now he dropped it with a clatter, the earthenware shattering on the dusty path. He pointed a trembling finger, his voice a breathless whisper, "Rabbi! Rabbi, Jesus has come!" The news, like a sudden gust of wind, swept through the village, stirring the quiet grief into a flurry of motion. Heads turned, eyes widened, and a ripple of hushed anticipation spread among the mourners gathered near the sisters' home. Martha, ever the practical one, was the first to hear the news, her ears attuned to every shift in the somber atmosphere. She had been sitting in the main room of their small house, her back straight despite the crushing weight of her grief, trying to offer what comfort she could to Mary, who lay prostrate on a mat, her face buried in her arms, her body racked by an unending stream of silent tears. Martha's face, usually animated and full of purpose, was now drawn and pale, the worry lines around her eyes deepened by 4 days of relentless sorrow and sleepless nights. Her hands, accustomed to the rhythmic tasks of the household, now lay clasped tightly in her lap, knuckles white. She wore a simple, dark tunic, its fabric clinging to her weary frame, and her hair, usually neatly bound, had escaped its pins, framing a face etched with the profound strain of loss. She had spent the past days receiving visitors, organizing the funeral rites, ensuring that every tradition was honored, even as her heart felt as if it had been torn from her chest. Her faith, usually a steadfast anchor, had been battered by the relentless waves of despair, leaving her feeling adrift and deeply, painfully confused. Upon hearing the boy's cry, a flicker of something, hope, Indignation, a desperate need for answers, ignited in Martha's eyes. She rose with a sudden, almost desperate energy, her movements stiff from days of sorrowful stillness. She moved with a purpose that seemed to defy her exhaustion, pushing past the murmuring mourners, her gaze fixed on the approaching figure of Jesus. She saw him then, standing at the edge of the olive grove, his disciples clustered behind him, their faces somber. His presence, even from a distance, was a powerful force, a beacon in the suffocating darkness that had enveloped her world. She hurried towards him, her steps quickening, a whirlwind of emotion swirling within her. As she reached him, her voice, though choked with grief, was clear and direct, mirroring her practical, no-nonsense nature. "Lord," she began, her eyes, red-rimmed and swollen from weeping, meeting his with an intensity that spoke of both accusation and unwavering belief. "If you had been here, my brother would not have died." The words hung in the air, a testament to her profound sorrow, her deep disappointment, and yet, paradoxically, her enduring faith. It was a statement born of a love so fierce it bordered on anger, a love that had expected the impossible from him. She believed in his power, she truly did, which is why his absence had cut her so deeply, leaving a wound that festered alongside her grief for Lazarus. She had sent for him, had pleaded for his presence, convinced that his touch, his word, could have averted this tragedy. And yet, he had not come. For days. For long, agonizing days had passed since Lazarus had drawn his last breath, for days since his body had been laid in the cool, dark earth of the tomb, and still, Jesus had been absent. Her gaze did not waver, searching his face for an explanation, for comfort, for anything that could mend the gaping hole in her heart. The scent of dust and dry earth, mingled with the faint, unsettling odor of decay that seemed to cling to the very air around the tomb, was a constant, cruel reminder of her loss. She felt the oppressive heat of the Judean sun on her skin, a stark contrast to the icy grip of despair that had taken hold of her soul. Jesus met her gaze with an infinite tenderness, his eyes reflecting the depth of her pain, yet holding a wisdom that transcended the immediate sorrow. His voice, gentle and calm, was a soothing balm against the raw edges of her grief. "Your brother will rise again," he said, his words a quiet assurance that seemed to settle upon the agitated air. Martha, ever the realist, the woman who managed a household and understood the finality of death, nodded slowly, her shoulders slumping slightly. "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day," she replied, her voice tinged with the weary resignation of one who understood theological truth but longed for immediate, tangible comfort. It was a statement of faith, yes, but a faith anchored in a distant future, not in the crushing present. She believed in the ultimate triumph of God, but the here and now was a desolate wasteland. The thought of Lazarus, cold and still in the tomb, was a constant torment, a vivid image that refused to recede from her mind. The cool, damp air of the cave, the heavy stone sealing it, the finality of it all, these were the realities she had been forced to confront. Jesus then looked at her with an intensity that seemed to pierce through her sorrow, straight to the core of her being. "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live, and everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this?" His question was not a challenge, but an invitation, a profound query that demanded more than a simple assent to doctrine. It demanded a leap of faith, a trust in his very identity. Martha's mind reeled, the weight of his words pressing down upon her. She thought of all she had witnessed, all she had heard about this man, the sick healed, the blind seeing, the lame walking. She remembered the quiet evenings when he had sat in their home, teaching with an authority she had never encountered before, his words resonating with truth and life. Her practical nature, which had so often focused on the immediate concerns of life, now grappled with a truth that transcended all earthly understanding. She looked at his face, saw the unwavering compassion in his eyes, and a profound conviction settled within her. "Yes, Lord," she declared, her voice stronger now, imbued with a renewed, unshakable certainty. "I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world." It was a confession born not of intellectual assent alone, but of a deep, abiding trust that had been tested by the fires of grief and had emerged, though singed, still burning brightly. In that moment, her personal sorrow, though still present, was momentarily eclipsed by the grandeur of his claim. She believed, not just in a future resurrection, but in him, the very embodiment of resurrection and life. Having spoken her heart, Martha's thoughts immediately turned to her sister, Mary, who remained cloistered in their home, lost in the depths of her own sorrow. Mary's grief was a more profound, more demonstrative affair than Martha's. She had always been the more emotional of the two, her devotion to Jesus expressed through quiet adoration and a willingness to simply sit at his feet and absorb his teachings. Now, that same depth of emotion manifested as an overwhelming, consuming sorrow. Her eyes, usually bright with contemplation, were now red-rimmed and swollen, her face pale and streaked with tears. Her posture was slumped, her body seemingly unable to bear the sheer weight of her loss. Martha turned back to Jesus, her voice softening, tinged with concern for her sister. "The teacher is here," she whispered, leaning closer, "and is asking for you." She knew Mary would want to see him, despite the crushing pain, perhaps even because of it. There was a desperate hope that only his presence could assuage the raw wound in Mary's heart. Mary, upon hearing the hushed message, stirred from her prostrate position. A tremor ran through her body, a mixture of profound relief and renewed anguish. She rose quickly, her movements uncharacteristically swift, her dark tunic clinging to her slender frame. The mourners, who had been sitting with her, offering quiet words of comfort and engaging in ritual lamentations, watched her with curious eyes. They saw the sudden urgency in her movements, the desperate hope that flickered in her tear-filled eyes, and assumed she was going to the tomb, a common practice for those overwhelmed by fresh grief. "She is going to the tomb to weep there," one of the women murmured, her voice laced with sympathy, as others nodded in agreement, their faces marked by a shared understanding of profound sorrow. The air in the house was thick with the scent of incense and the lingering aroma of funeral spices, a constant reminder of the reason for their gathering. Mary, however, paid them no mind. Her world had narrowed to a single point: Jesus. She moved through the house, past the hushed mourners, her heart pounding with a mixture of longing and a deep, aching pain. She stepped out into the blinding sunlight, her eyes squinting against the sudden brightness, and saw him standing there, just beyond the edge of the village, near the olive trees where the shade offered a slight reprieve from the relentless sun. As she approached him, her steps faltered, the full weight of her grief crashing down upon her once more. The sight of him, the one she had loved so dearly, the one she had believed could prevent this tragedy, brought forth a fresh wave of tears. Her composure, which had been so fragile, shattered completely. She fell at his feet, her body trembling with uncontrollable sobs, her hands reaching out to grasp the hem of his garment. "Lord," she cried out, her voice broken, choked with emotion, the same words Martha had spoken, but imbued with a different, more visceral agony. "If you had been here, my brother would not have died." Her words were not an accusation, but a raw outpouring of her shattered heart, a lament born of utter despair. The dry, earthy scent of the village, the distant bleating of sheep, the oppressive heat, all faded into the background, eclipsed by the overwhelming force of her grief. The Jewish mourners and villagers, who had followed Mary out of the house, now gathered around, their faces a mixture of genuine empathy and solemn observation. Some were truly grieving for Lazarus, a kind and respected man in their community, while others were there out of custom, their presence a social obligation. They saw Mary's profound sorrow, her body shaking with the force of her weeping, and their own lamentations began anew, a chorus of wails and cries rising into the hot afternoon air. Their traditional garments, often simple and dark, seemed to absorb the light, deepening the somber atmosphere. They murmured prayers, some in Hebrew, others in Aramaic, their voices a low, mournful drone. Jesus, witnessing Mary's profound grief, and seeing the tears of the mourners who had accompanied her, felt a deep stirring within his spirit. He saw the raw, unvarnished pain of humanity, the crushing weight of death's victory, and a profound wave of compassion, mingled with a righteous indignation at the power of death, swept over him. His heart, already heavy with the knowledge of their suffering, was now deeply troubled, a profound anguish settling upon his own soul. He groaned inwardly, a deep, guttural sound that spoke of his shared burden, his empathy for their brokenness. "Where have you laid him?" he asked, his voice low, almost a whisper, yet carrying an undeniable authority that cut through the wailing. They led him to the tomb, a cool, dark cave hewn from the living rock, nestled on the outskirts of the village, surrounded by ancient olive trees whose gnarled branches offered meager shade. The air grew cooler as they approached, carrying the distinct, unsettling odor of decay that seeped from the sealed entrance. A heavy stone, round and massive, had been rolled across the opening, a stark, unyielding barrier between the living and the dead. It was a place of finality, of no return, a cold testament to the irreversible nature of death. As Jesus stood before the tomb, the full weight of the scene settled upon him, the weeping sisters, the mournful crowd, the cold, silent stone, the undeniable reality of Lazarus's death. He saw the despair etched on every face, felt the suffocating grip of sorrow that permeated the very air. The tears began to well in his own eyes, not just for Lazarus, his beloved friend, but for the universal human experience of loss, for the pain that death inflicted upon those left behind. And then, Jesus wept. His tears were not a torrent, but a quiet, profound stream, tracing paths down his dusty cheeks, mingling with the tears of Mary and Martha, and indeed, with the tears of all humanity who had ever stood before the impenetrable wall of death. It was a moment of profound vulnerability, a testament to his deep compassion, his shared humanity. The sight of him, the powerful rabbi, weeping openly, caused a hush to fall over the assembled crowd. The professional mourners quieted their wailing, their eyes fixed on him, a mixture of awe and confusion on their faces. "See how he loved him," some of the villagers whispered among themselves, their voices hushed, filled with a newfound respect for the depth of his friendship. The raw emotion of the moment transcended their skepticism, touching a universal chord of human connection. But others, those who harbored doubts or who had witnessed his previous miracles, murmured with a different tone, their voices laced with a subtle challenge, a hint of accusation. Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man also have kept this man from dying? They questioned, their eyes darting between Jesus and the sealed tomb, their minds grappling with the apparent contradiction of his power and his perceived inaction. The question hung in the air, a silent challenge to his authority, a reflection of their own confusion and the human desire for immediate intervention, for a world where suffering could always be averted. Jesus, hearing their murmurs, felt a renewed surge of deep emotion, a spiritual agitation that resonated through his very being. He knew their doubts, their questions, their limited understanding. He knew the profound grief that had settled upon his friends, the despair that had taken root in their hearts. He knew the finality that the 4 days in the tomb represented, the Jewish belief that after 4 days, the soul had completely departed, that decay had set in, making any return to leave utterly impossible by human standards. This was not merely a death, it was a death that had passed beyond all hope, a definitive end. He stood before the tomb, a man deeply troubled, yet utterly resolved. The cool, damp air of the cave, the heavy stone, the dry, earthy scent of death, these were the tangible realities of their world. But in his heart, a different reality was stirring, a divine purpose that was about to shatter the boundaries of what they believed possible. He looked at the heavy stone, the symbol of death's triumph, and a profound, quiet determination settled upon his face. The stage was set, not just for a moment of shared grief, but for a revelation that would transform their understanding of life, death, and the extraordinary power of the one who stood before them. The air, thick with the scent of dry earth and the lingering perfume of funerary spices, seemed to hum with an unspoken tension as Jesus stood before the tomb. The heavy stone, a crude, unyielding barrier, cast a long, dark shadow in the late afternoon sun, a stark declaration of finality. Around him, the mourners shifted, their hushed murmurs a restless counterpoint to the quiet intensity emanating from the Nazarene. Martha, her eyes still red-rimmed but now alight with a flicker of desperate hope, watched his every move, her heart a tumultuous sea of conflicting emotions. She had seen him heal the sick, cast out demons, even calm the raging storm, but this was different. This was death, cold and absolute, for days old. Jesus turned to her then, his gaze gentle yet piercing, seeming to see not just her outward grief, but the deep well of faith that lay beneath her practical exterior. His voice, though soft, carried an undeniable authority that cut through the mournful atmosphere, reaching into the very core of her being. "Your brother will rise again," he stated, not as a question, but as an absolute truth, a promise woven into the fabric of creation itself. Martha, ever the one to grasp at the tangible, nodded slowly, her mind clinging to the familiar comfort of Scripture. "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day," she replied, her voice a little steadier now, finding solace in the ancient prophecies, in the distant hope of a future redemption. It was a belief she had held since childhood, a cornerstone of her faith, but it felt so far away, so abstract, in the face of the cold, hard reality of the tomb before them. But Jesus' words were not about a distant future, they were about a present, living truth, a power that transcended the boundaries of time and mortality. He stepped closer, his presence radiating an almost palpable warmth, and looked directly into her eyes, his gaze holding hers with an unwavering certainty. "I am the resurrection and the life," he declared, his voice resonating with a profound truth that seemed to echo through the very stones of Bethany. "He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live." Each word was a deliberate stroke, painting a picture of power and promise that defied all human understanding, a declaration that tore through the veil of sorrow and despair. "And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die." Martha listened, her breath catching in her throat, the sheer audacity and divine weight of his statement washing over her. It was not merely a teaching, but an unveiling, a direct assertion of his own identity, a claim to dominion over life and death itself. The air around them seemed to thicken, charged with an invisible energy, as if the very fabric of reality was being stretched and redefined in that moment. Then, his gaze softened, becoming an invitation, a gentle challenge to her deepest convictions. "Do you believe this?" he asked, his voice a tender inquiry, not demanding, but seeking a response from the depths of her soul. Martha stood there, suspended between the crushing weight of her brother's death and the astonishing, world-altering declaration that had just been spoken. Her mind, so accustomed to the practicalities of daily life, grappled with the immensity of his claim. She thought of Lazarus, cold and still in the tomb, of the 4 long days that had passed, of the irreversible nature of death that every human heart understood. Yet, she also thought of Jesus, of the miracles she had witnessed, of the wisdom that flowed from him, of the peace he brought to every troubled soul. A battle raged within her, between the undeniable evidence of her senses and the unshakable conviction of her heart. Then, slowly, a profound conviction began to bloom within her, pushing aside the thorns of doubt and grief. It was a belief not born of logical deduction, but of an intuitive, spiritual recognition, a deep knowing that transcended explanation. She looked at him, her eyes shining with a newfound clarity, and the words, though whispered, carried the weight of an eternal truth. "Yes, Lord," she affirmed, her voice trembling slightly but firm with conviction. "I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is to come into the world." It was a declaration of faith that encompassed not just the hope of resurrection, but the very essence of his divine identity, a complete surrender to the truth of who he was, regardless of the present circumstances. In that moment, Martha, the practical sister, became a beacon of unwavering belief, her faith a quiet, powerful testament in the face of overwhelming sorrow. Having laid bare her heart and affirmed her faith, a sense of purpose settled over Martha. The urgency of the moment, the knowledge that Jesus was here, calling for them, propelled her forward. She turned from Jesus, her steps quick and purposeful, and made her way back through the crowd of murmuring mourners, her eyes searching for her sister. The air still throbbed with the weight of Jesus' words, but now, mixed with the sorrow, was a fragile, nascent hope. She found Mary in the house, surrounded by a cluster of women, their faces etched with sympathy, their soft laments a constant, mournful hum. Mary sat on a low cushion, her head bowed, her shoulders slumped, the picture of utter desolation. Her hair, usually neatly braided, was disheveled, and her simple tunic was stained with the dust of grief. The tears had not stopped flowing since Lazarus's last breath, and her eyes were swollen and red, her face pale and drawn. She was lost in her own private world of sorrow, the comforting words of her friends barely penetrating the thick fog of her despair. Martha knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on Mary's trembling shoulder. The touch was soft, but the message in her eyes was urgent, a spark of life in the midst of death. She leaned in close, her voice a low, conspiratorial whisper, meant only for her sister's ears, a secret shared between two hearts bound by love and loss. "The teacher is here," Martha breathed, the words carrying a weight of both solemnity and rekindled hope, "and he is calling for you." Mary's head snapped up, her eyes, though still clouded with tears, widened in surprise, then in a sudden, intense flicker of recognition. The name, the teacher, resonated deep within her, stirring a dormant chord of devotion and longing. It was a name that brought with it memories of peaceful evenings spent at his feet, of profound teachings that illuminated her soul, of a presence that had always brought her comfort and understanding. The knowledge that he was near, that he had finally arrived, pierced through the thick curtain of her grief, momentarily eclipsing the pain. Without a word, Mary rose, her movement swift and unhesitating, a sudden burst of energy animating her grief-stricken frame. The women around her, accustomed to her quiet, sorrowful stillness, watched in surprised silence as she pushed past them, her eyes fixed on some unseen point beyond the doorway. There was an almost desperate urgency in her steps, a profound need to be in his presence, to lay her broken heart at his feet. She moved with such speed that the mourners, startled by her abrupt departure, murmured amongst themselves, then, assuming she was going to the tomb to weep, followed her, their curiosity piqued, their traditional role of comforting now shifting to one of observation. Mary emerged from the house into the bright, unforgiving sunlight, her eyes scanning the dusty path, her heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and renewed sorrow. She saw him then, standing a little way off, surrounded by a small group of his disciples and some of the villagers, his figure radiating a quiet strength even in his apparent weariness. The sight of him, the one she had longed for, the one she had believed could have prevented this tragedy, unleashed a fresh wave of grief, raw and overwhelming. She rushed towards him, her feet barely touching the ground, the distance between them feeling like an eternity. When she reached him, she fell immediately to her knees at his feet, her body shaking with uncontrollable sobs. It was an act of profound humility, of utter surrender, her posture a testament to her brokenness and her unwavering devotion. Her tears flowed freely, wetting the dusty ground around his feet, a silent, eloquent outpouring of the agony that had consumed her for 4 long days. "Lord," she choked out, her voice fractured by grief, the words barely audible between her gasping sobs, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died." It was the same lament Martha had uttered, but from Mary's lips it carried a different weight, a more profound, visceral expression of sorrow and a poignant, almost childlike, plea for understanding. Her words were not an accusation, but a lament, a heartbroken cry from the depths of her soul, reflecting the universal human desire to avert tragedy, to rewind time, to hold on to those we love. She clung to his feet, her whole being radiating an unbearable pain, her tears a testament to the depth of her love for Lazarus and her unwavering faith in Jesus' power. Jesus looked down at her, his heart stirred by the raw, unbridled anguish of her grief. He saw her tears, felt the tremor in her hands as she clutched at his feet, and heard the profound sorrow in her broken voice. He saw not just Mary, but the collective suffering of humanity reflected in her tear-streaked face, the pain of loss, the despair of separation, the aching void left by death. And as he looked beyond her, to the Jewish mourners who had followed, their faces etched with their own sorrow, their ritual wailing now rising in a mournful crescendo, a deep, profound emotion began to stir within him. He saw their tears, heard their lamentations, and felt the crushing weight of their shared grief. The atmosphere was thick with sorrow, a tangible shroud of despair that seemed to press in on all sides. And in that moment, Jesus, the Son of God, the one who held the power over life and death, allowed himself to fully enter into their suffering. He was deeply moved in spirit, his heart profoundly troubled, a powerful wave of compassion washing over him. The divine and the human converged within him, and he groaned inwardly, a deep, guttural sound that spoke of an immense empathy, a shared burden of sorrow that transcended his divine knowledge of the coming miracle. His eyes, usually so clear and steady, now welled with tears. And then, in a moment that would forever be etched into the hearts of those who witnessed it, Jesus wept. His tears were not just for Lazarus, nor solely for Mary and Martha, but for the entire human condition, for the pain of separation, for the sting of death, for the suffering that humanity endured. They were tears of profound compassion, of a shared humanity, a testament to his deep love for his friends and his profound understanding of their pain. He, who was about to conquer death, first chose to grieve with those who mourned, demonstrating a divine empathy that transcended all understanding. The sight of Jesus weeping sent a ripple through the crowd. Some of the Jewish mourners, their own tears still flowing, looked at him with a renewed sense of awe and understanding. "See how he loved him," one whispered, her voice thick with emotion, recognizing the depth of his affection for Lazarus. Others, however, their hearts hardened by skepticism or perhaps by their own limited understanding, murmured amongst themselves, their voices tinged with doubt. Could not this man, who opened the eyes of the blind, also have kept this man from dying? They questioned, their words carrying a subtle challenge, a hint of accusation, unable to reconcile his apparent power with his delayed arrival and the present sorrow. But Jesus paid them no mind. His focus was on the raw, aching grief that surrounded him, on the profound sorrow that had gripped his friends. He felt the weight of it, the cold, heavy hand of death that had touched their lives. And even as his tears mingled with the dust of Bethany, a fierce, quiet determination began to harden within him, a resolve to confront this enemy, this final boundary of human existence, and to demonstrate a power that would shatter their understanding of life and death forever. He had wept with them, shared their sorrow, and now, he was prepared to act, to reveal a truth that would transform their grief into an awe-filled wonder. His voice, still thick with emotion but now imbued with an undeniable command, cut through the mournful air. "Where have you laid him?" he asked, his gaze sweeping over the faces of the mourners, his question not a search for information, but a prelude to a revelation. His voice, still thick with emotion but now imbued with an undeniable command, cut through the mournful air. "Where have you laid him?" he asked, his gaze sweeping over the faces of the mourners, his question not a search for information, but a prelude to a revelation. A hush fell over the assembled crowd, the wailing of the professional mourners momentarily ceasing, their lamentations replaced by a collective breath held in anticipation. Martha, her eyes still red-rimmed but now alight with a flicker of renewed purpose, stepped forward, her practical nature reasserting itself even in the face of such profound grief. She gestured with a trembling hand towards the eastern edge of the village, where the rocky terrain began its ascent towards the Mount of Olives. "Lord," she murmured, her voice a fragile whisper against the vastness of the Judean sky, "come and see." The procession began to move, a somber, slow pilgrimage towards the place where Lazarus lay entombed. The sun, now high in the azure expanse, beat down with an unforgiving intensity, baking the dusty path beneath their sandaled feet. The air shimmered with heat, carrying the dry, earthy scent of the parched landscape, a stark contrast to the cool, damp chill that awaited them within the rock-hewn sepulchre. The villagers, their faces etched with a mixture of curiosity and dread, followed at a respectful distance, their murmurs like the rustling of dry leaves. Some whispered of the man from Nazareth, of the miracles he had performed in Galilee and Judea, their hopes cautiously stirring. Others, the more cynical among them, exchanged knowing glances, their skepticism a heavy cloak in the oppressive heat. They had seen death before, knew its finality, and the idea of reversing its decree seemed a preposterous notion, a cruel jest to a grieving family. Mary, still clinging to Jesus' robe, her body trembling with a mixture of exhaustion and an inexplicable, nascent hope, felt the weight of the moment pressing down upon her. Each step towards the tomb was a step closer to the undeniable truth of her brother's absence, yet Jesus' presence, his unwavering resolve, instilled in her a fragile, desperate belief that perhaps, just perhaps, something extraordinary was about to unfold. The scent of wild thyme, crushed beneath their feet, mingled with the faint, unsettling odor of the nearby burial ground, a constant, grim reminder of their destination. As they drew nearer, the tomb became visible, a dark, gaping maw carved into the side of a rocky outcrop, its entrance sealed by a massive, circular stone. It was a family tomb, hewn from the leaving rock generations ago, a silent testament to the lineage of Bethany. The air around it felt heavier, cooler, a palpable shift from the sun-drenched path, as if the very rock exhaled the chill of the earth's depths. The mourners instinctively recoiled slightly, their lamentations softening to hushed whispers, a primal respect for the boundary between the living and the dead. Jesus approached the tomb with a measured, deliberate pace, his gaze fixed on the heavy stone that barred the entrance. He stood before it, a solitary figure against the stark backdrop of the Judean wilderness, his presence radiating an authority that silenced even the buzzing of the flies. The silence stretched, taut and expectant, broken only by the distant bleating of a sheep and the soft, almost imperceptible rustle of the wind through the olive trees. Then, with a voice that resonated with quiet power, a voice that seemed to draw strength from the very earth beneath their feet, Jesus issued his command. "Take away the stone," he said, his words clear and firm, echoing slightly in the stillness. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The command was met with a stunned silence, then a flurry of anxious glances. To move the stone was to expose the raw, unvarnished truth of death, to confront the decay that had surely set in after 4 long days. The custom was to leave the dead undisturbed, to allow nature to run its course. This request was not merely unconventional, it felt almost sacrilegious, an affront to the natural order. Martha, ever the practical one, her mind racing with the grim realities of their situation, stepped forward again, her brow furrowed with a mixture of concern and an almost desperate plea. Her heart, though yearning for a miracle, was also burdened by the harsh truths of their world. She knew what lay beyond that stone, the irreversible process that had begun the moment Lazarus's last breath had escaped him. The thought of exposing her brother's body in such a state, before so many witnesses, filled her with a deep, visceral dread. "Lord," she began, her voice quivering, her gaze fixed on Jesus' compassionate but unwavering eyes, "by this time there will be a stench, for he has been dead 4 days." Her words were not a challenge to his power, but a raw, honest expression of her human understanding, her fear of the inevitable, the practical objection born of love and sorrow. She read the careful preparation of Lazarus's body, the anointing with spices, the wrapping in linen cloths, all done to honor him in death, to preserve his dignity. To open the tomb now, after so long, would be to undo that solemn act, to reveal not a peaceful slumber, but the undeniable corruption of the grave. The image of what lay within, the smell that would surely assault them, made her stomach churn. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, many nodding their heads in solemn understanding. They knew the truth of Martha's words, the grim reality of death's swift dominion. The air around them, already heavy with anticipation, now seemed to thicken with a sense of unease, a collective reluctance to face the stark evidence of mortality. Jesus turned his gaze upon Martha. His eyes, though filled with an infinite tenderness, also held a gentle, yet profound, challenge. He saw her love, her grief, her practical concerns, but he also saw the lingering tendrils of doubt, the human limitations that sought to circumscribe divine power. He reached out a hand, not to touch her, but as if to encompass her very being, to draw her fully into the realm of faith. "Did I not tell you," he said, his voice soft yet resonant, each word carrying the weight of an eternal truth, "that if you believe, you would see the glory of God?" His words hung in the air, a gentle rebuke, a powerful reminder, and a profound promise all at once. They were not a scolding, but an invitation, a call to transcend the boundaries of human understanding and embrace the boundless possibilities of divine intervention. Martha felt the warmth of his gaze, the quiet power of his presence, and a wave of conviction washed over her, momentarily eclipsing her fear and doubt. She remembered her earlier declaration, her unwavering belief that he was the Christ, the Son of God. This was the moment for that faith to be tested, to be affirmed, to be made manifest. The practical Martha, the one who worried about the stench, momentarily receded, replaced by the Martha who had declared, "Even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you." Mary, standing close by, heard the exchange, felt the shift in the atmosphere, and a surge of renewed hope coursed through her veins, chasing away the last vestiges of despair. She looked at Jesus, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and desperate longing, her heart pounding in her chest. The mourners too, though many still harbored their doubts, felt the undeniable force of Jesus' words, the quiet authority that seemed to bend reality to its will. A few brave souls, those whose hearts were already open to the miraculous, began to stir, their skepticism momentarily silenced by the sheer power of his conviction. With a renewed sense of purpose, a few of the villagers, men accustomed to hard labor, stepped forward. They were not without apprehension, their faces grim, but the quiet command in Jesus' voice, coupled with Martha's sudden, unwavering resolve, compelled them to act. They approached the tomb, their movements deliberate, their hands calloused from years of working the land. The stone, a massive disc of rough-hewn rock, was designed to fit snugly into a groove, sealing the entrance against intruders and the elements. It was heavy, requiring the combined strength of several men to budge it. The air grew thick with tension as they positioned themselves, their muscles straining. The scraping sound of rock against rock, a low, grinding moan, echoed eerily in the stillness, a sound that seemed to tear at the fabric of the mournful silence. Dust, fine and ancient, billowed from beneath the stone as it slowly, incrementally, began to yield. Each inch of movement was a testament to their effort, and to the silent, unseen force that seemed to guide their hands. As the stone rolled back, revealing the dark opening of the tomb, a collective shudder ran through the crowd. A wave of cool, damp air, heavy with the unmistakable scent of the earth and the faint, unsettling odor that Martha had so dreaded, wafted out, chilling them to the bone. It was the smell of decay, of mortality, a stark, undeniable testament to the passage of 4 days. Some of the mourners instinctively recoiled, covering their mouths and noses with the hems of their garments, their faces contorted in expressions of disgust and sorrow. The air was thick with the tangible presence of death, a powerful, suffocating reminder of their shared human fragility. The interior of the tomb was a cavernous darkness, a void that seemed to swallow the harsh sunlight. Only a faint glimmer of light penetrated its depths, revealing the rough-hewn walls, the cold, unyielding rock. The air within was still, stagnant, a world apart from the vibrant, sun-drenched landscape outside. It was a place of finality, of eternal slumber, a silent declaration of death's triumph. Jesus stood unmoving, his gaze fixed on the dark opening, his expression one of profound solemnity. He did not flinch from the odor, nor did he avert his eyes from the grim reality that lay within. He had wept for Lazarus, for the sorrow of his sisters, for the pervasive suffering that death inflicted upon humanity. Now, he stood at the precipice of a revelation, a moment that would transcend human grief and demonstrate the boundless glory of God. The stage was set, the witnesses gathered, the proof of death's dominion laid bare. All that remained was the voice that would shatter the silence, and the power that would call forth life from the very heart of the grave. The anticipation was a palpable thing, a living entity that pulsed in the air, binding them all in a shared moment of profound, terrifying wonder. The anticipation was a palpable thing, a living entity that pulsed in the air, binding them all in a shared moment of profound, terrifying wonder. Jesus stood before the gaping mouth of the tomb, the afternoon sun a fiery crown behind his head, casting his silhouette in stark relief against the ancient rock. A hush had fallen over the crowd, a silence deeper than any prayer, heavier than any lament. Even the professional mourners had ceased their wailing, their eyes now fixed, unblinking, upon the Nazarene. Martha, her practical nature momentarily suspended, stood rigid, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white, her breath held captive in her chest. Mary, her face still streaked with tears, had moved closer, drawn by an invisible current, her gaze fixed on Jesus with an intensity that burned through her sorrow. The villagers, a sea of hushed faces, leaned forward, their curiosity now mingled with a burgeoning, almost fearful, expectation. The air, once thick with dust and the scent of dry earth, now seemed to crackle with an unseen energy, a tension that promised either profound disappointment or an unimaginable miracle. Jesus' eyes, deep and knowing, swept over the faces gathered before him, lingering for a moment on the sisters, then on the tomb itself. He took a slow, deliberate breath, and then, with a movement that was both graceful and powerful, he lifted his gaze heavenward. The blue expanse of the Judean sky, vast and indifferent, seemed to open above him, a silent witness to the unfolding drama. His voice, when it came, was not a shout, nor a plea, but a clear, resonant declaration that seemed to fill the space between the earth and the heavens, carrying with it an ancient authority. "Father," he began, his words echoing softly against the rock face, "I thank you that you have heard me." A tremor ran through the crowd. This was not a request, but an acknowledgement, a statement of certainty that sent a shiver down Martha's spine. She had always believed in Jesus' power, but this felt different, more intimate, a direct conversation with the divine. Mary's heart, which had been a leaden weight in her chest, now fluttered with a fragile, almost unbearable hope. She remembered his words from earlier, the promise that Lazarus would rise, but her grief had clouded her ability to truly grasp their meaning. Now, as his voice resonated with such unwavering conviction, the possibility, once a distant star, began to draw closer, burning brighter. Jesus continued, his voice gaining a quiet, profound strength, "I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me." His words hung in the air, a profound statement of purpose, a revelation intended not just for the ears of the crowd, but for the very fabric of their understanding. He was not merely performing a wonder, he was unveiling a truth, a connection between the earthly and the divine that transcended all human comprehension. The villagers exchanged bewildered glances, some murmuring softly, others simply staring, their minds wrestling with the implications of his prayer. This was not a magician's trick, nor a desperate plea. This was a son speaking to his father, with an unshakable confidence that bordered on the miraculous even before the miracle itself had occurred. Then Jesus lowered his gaze from the sky, his eyes now fixed directly upon the tomb, an intensity in them that seemed to pierce through the darkness within. The air grew thick, heavy with an almost unbearable suspense. The sun beat down, but a strange coolness seemed to emanate from the tomb's entrance, a chill that was not of the air, but of the grave itself. Every breath in the crowd seemed to catch, held captive by the sheer force of Jesus' presence. He paused, a moment that stretched into an eternity, allowing the weight of the situation to settle, allowing the full gravity of what he was about to do to permeate every soul present. Then, with a sudden, powerful intake of breath, he unleashed his command. "Lazarus, come forth!" The words exploded from him, not as a shout of human effort, but as a thunderclap of divine authority, a voice that seemed to rip through the very fabric of existence, shattering the silence, echoing against the hills, and reverberating deep within the earth. It was a voice that commanded, that demanded, that tolerated no refusal. It was a sound that seemed to reach beyond the veil of death, to penetrate the cold, unyielding darkness of the tomb, and to stir the very atoms of what had once been a living man. Martha gasped, a sharp, involuntary sound that was lost in the sudden, collective intake of breath from the crowd. Her knees threatened to buckle, a wave of dizziness washing over her. This was it, the moment she had both yearned for and feared, the ultimate test of her faith. Mary, her hands now pressed to her mouth, tears streaming anew down her face, felt a surge of something akin to electric current course through her veins. Her heart pounded, a frantic drum against her ribs, as if trying to keep pace with the impossible. The mourners, who had seen countless dead, who knew the finality of the grave, now stood frozen, their faces etched with a mixture of terror and disbelief. They had heard tales, whispers of miracles, but never had they stood so close to such a raw, undeniable confrontation with death itself. A beat passed, then another, an agonizing stretch of time where the only sound was the frantic beating of their own hearts, and the distant, ordinary hum of the Judean afternoon. The air hung heavy, pregnant with the impossible. Had it worked? Could it possibly work? Doubt, a venomous serpent, began to coil in the minds of some, even as a desperate, fervent hope bloomed in others. Then, from the inky blackness of the tomb's interior, a sound emerged. It was a faint, shuffling noise, a dragging, scraping sound that was utterly out of place, utterly unnatural. It was the sound of something moving within the confines of the grave. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, a wave of terror and wonder. All eyes were glued to the dark opening, straining to discern the source of the sound. The shuffling grew louder, more distinct, accompanied by a soft, rustling noise, like dry cloth being disturbed. And then, a shadow began to coalesce in the gloom of the tomb's entrance. Slowly, impossibly, a figure began to emerge. It was Lazarus. He moved with a stiff, unnatural gait, his feet and hands bound tightly with grave clothes, the linen strips restricting his movements, forcing him to shuffle forward in short, awkward steps. His face, too, was wrapped with a cloth, obscuring his features, leaving only the hollows of his eyes visible beneath the folds. The scent of the tomb, that dry, earthy smell, now seemed to cling to him, a chilling testament to where he had been. A profound, primal cry escaped Mary's lips, a sound of pure, unadulterated shock and joy, a sound that was half sob, half gasp. She stumbled forward, her arms outstretched, her entire being yearning to reach him, to touch him, to confirm that this was real, that her brother, her beloved Lazarus, was truly standing before her. Martha, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and awe, felt her legs finally give way, and she sank to her knees, her hand still clasped, but now pressed to her mouth, stifling a scream of overwhelming emotion. Tears, hot and fast, streamed down her face, not of sorrow, but of a profound, shattering relief, a joy so immense it threatened to consume her. The crowd erupted in a cacophony of sound, gasps, cries, shouts of astonishment, some falling to their knees in reverence, others backing away in fear, their minds struggling to reconcile what their eyes were witnessing with everything they knew of life and death. The professional mourners, who had wailed for the dead, now stood utterly silent, their faces pale, their elaborate rituals rendered meaningless by this impossible reality. Lazarus continued his slow, deliberate emergence, his bound form a stark, undeniable testament to the power that had just been unleashed. He blinked slowly in the harsh sunlight, his eyes, though obscured by the cloth, seeming to search, to comprehend. He was a man returned from the ultimate journey, a leaving paradox, a bridge between two worlds. Jesus watched him, a gentle, knowing smile gracing his lips, his eyes filled with a profound compassion. He had called his friend forth, and his friend had answered. The glory of God, which he had spoken of, was now manifest, standing before them, wrapped in grave clothes, breathing the air of the leaving once more. "Untie him," Jesus commanded, his voice softer now, but still imbued with an undeniable authority, "and let him go." Immediately, several of the stunned onlookers, galvanized by the command, rushed forward, their fear momentarily overcome by the sheer wonder of the moment. They carefully, reverently, began to unbind the linen strips from Lazarus's hands and feet, their fingers trembling as they touched the grave clothes, as if fearing to disturb the miracle itself. As the last of the bindings fell away, Lazarus took a deep, shuddering breath, his chest rising and falling with the unmistakable rhythm of life. He reached up, his hands now free, and slowly, deliberately, pulled the cloth from his face. His eyes, though still a little dazed, met Mary's, and then Martha's. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips, a recognition that transcended the 4 days of darkness. He was here, he was alive, and the world had been irrevocably changed by the voice that had called him forth. The sun, which had seemed so indifferent moments before, now shone with a new, blinding brilliance, illuminating the scene of an impossible triumph, a profound testament to a divine love that conquered even the grave. The air, once heavy with mourning, now vibrated with the silent, awe-inspiring symphony of resurrection, a melody of hope that would echo through the ages. The sun, which had seemed so indifferent moments before, now shone with a new, blinding brilliance, illuminating the scene of an impossible triumph, a profound testament to a divine love that conquered even the grave. The air, once heavy with mourning, now vibrated with the silent, awe-inspiring symphony of resurrection, a melody of hope that would echo through the ages. Lazarus stood, blinking slowly, his eyes adjusting to the harsh Judean light after 4 days of utter darkness. The grave clothes, still binding his hands and feet, restricted his movements, making each step a shuffle, each breath a shallow intake of air through the linen that covered his mouth. He looked like a figure from a dream, a spectral being returned from the very edge of existence, yet undeniably solid, undeniably present. A low murmur rippled through the gathered crowd, a sound caught between awe and a lingering, almost superstitious fear. Some instinctively recoiled, their minds struggling to reconcile the man they knew with this mummy-like apparition. Others leaned forward, their eyes wide with a desperate, hopeful curiosity, daring to believe what their senses were screaming was impossible. Martha, who had been frozen in a tableau of disbelief and burgeoning joy, now took a tentative step forward, her practical mind immediately assessing the situation. She saw the strips of linen, the awkwardness of his stance, the way his chest rose and fell beneath the fabric. A small, choked sound escaped her lips, a mixture of a sob and a laugh, as she realized the simple, physical truth of his return. He was here, he was breathing, but he was still bound. Her gaze, brimming with tears, found Jesus, a silent plea in their depths. Mary, still kneeling, her face buried in her hands, slowly lifted her head, her tear-streaked eyes focusing on her brother. The initial shock of his appearance had given way to a wave of overwhelming relief, a profound sense of peace settling over her soul. She saw him, truly saw him, not as a memory, not as a ghost, but as her brother, whole and alive. A fragile smile, born of pure, unadulterated joy, began to bloom on her face, even as fresh tears streamed down her cheeks. The sight of him, still wrapped, still bearing the vestiges of his journey, was a stark reminder of the miracle, a living, breathing testament to the power that had just been unleashed. Jesus, his face serene but etched with a deep, quiet satisfaction, observed the scene. He saw the fear in some eyes, the wonder in others, the dawning comprehension in Martha's, and the pure, unburdened joy in Mary's. He had called Lazarus forth from the grave, but the final act of restoration, the complete liberation, was now for humanity to perform. His voice, though gentle, carried an undeniable authority that cut through the stunned silence, a command that was both a practical instruction and a profound spiritual declaration. "Loose him," Jesus said, his gaze sweeping over the bewildered crowd, "and let him go." The words hung in the air, a clarion call to action, a final punctuation mark on the impossible. For a moment, no one moved, still caught in the inertia of their astonishment. Then, Martha, ever the one to act, was the first to stir. Her eyes, still fixed on her brother, darted to the nearest villagers, her voice, though hoarse from weeping, finding its strength. "Help us," she pleaded, her hands already reaching out, trembling slightly, to grasp the edge of a linen strip near Lazarus's shoulder. "Please, help us unbind him." A few of the closest men, their initial fear giving way to a surge of communal responsibility and an almost feverish desire to participate in this unfolding wonder, stepped forward. They moved cautiously at first, as if approaching a sacred, fragile thing, their hands hesitant. The scent of the tomb, dry and earthy, still clung faintly to the grave clothes, a subtle reminder of the threshold Lazarus had crossed. As they began to pull at the strips of linen, the fabric, stiff from its long confinement, resisted slightly, then yielded. Each strip unwound revealed more of Lazarus, his pale, but undeniably leaving, skin, the faint stubble on his chin, the subtle rise and fall of his chest beneath the final layers. Lazarus himself remained remarkably still, his eyes wide, taking in the faces around him, the blue sky above, the familiar contours of the village that had been his home. He felt the cool air on his skin as the grave clothes were peeled away, a sensation both strange and exquisitely familiar. The weight of the linen, which he hadn't consciously registered until it was gone, lifted from his limbs, and a profound sense of lightness began to permeate his being. He felt the blood coursing through his veins, a gentle hum of life that was utterly miraculous after the profound stillness of death. His mind, still processing the transition, was a kaleidoscope of impressions, the echoing voice, the sudden, overwhelming urge to move, the blinding light, and now, the gentle hands of his neighbors, carefully, reverently, freeing him. Mary, now on her feet, watched with bated breath, her heart swelling with an emotion so vast it threatened to overwhelm her. She saw the grave clothes fall away, piece by piece, revealing her brother, not as a ghost, but as the man she had loved, the man she had mourned, the man who had been given back to them. When the last strip of linen was removed from his hands, Lazarus flexed his fingers, slowly, deliberately, as if rediscovering the simple miracle of movement. A collective gasp, then a soft sigh, escaped the onlookers. His hands, once bound, were now free, capable of touching, of holding, of embracing. The villagers, their initial trepidation replaced by an eager, almost joyous energy, continued to help, carefully folding the discarded grave clothes, as if they were precious relics. The air, once thick with the scent of morning, now carried a faint, almost imperceptible sweetness, a newness that seemed to emanate from Lazarus himself. When his feet were finally unbound, he took a full, deep breath, the first truly unhindered breath in what felt like an eternity, and a soft, almost inaudible sigh of pure relief escaped him. He looked down at his freed hands, then up at the faces surrounding him, a flicker of bewildered gratitude in his eyes. Martha, unable to contain herself any longer, rushed forward, her arms outstretched. "Lazarus," she cried, her voice choked with emotion, and she enveloped him in a fierce, trembling embrace. The warmth of his leaving body, the solid feel of his frame, was an undeniable reality, a stark contrast to the cold, still form she had last seen. She buried her face in his shoulder, her tears of sorrow now transformed into tears of an almost unbearable joy, each one a testament to the miracle she was holding. She felt the slight tremor in his body, the gentle pressure of his arms hesitantly returning her embrace, and she knew, with an absolute certainty, that her brother had truly returned. Mary joined them, her own embrace softer, more reverent, as if she feared he might vanish if held too tightly. She pressed her cheek against his, feeling the warmth of his skin, the faint, familiar scent of him, now mingled with the lingering earthiness of the tomb. The three of them stood there, a tableau of reunion, their tears mingling, their hearts overflowing with a gratitude that defied words. The weight of 4 days of grief, of despair, of a future irrevocably altered, lifted from their shoulders, replaced by a lightness, a profound sense of liberation that pulsed through their very beings. The villagers, witnessing this intimate family reunion, were deeply moved. Many wiped away tears of their own, not of sorrow, but of shared wonder and profound empathy. The professional mourners, who had been silenced by the resurrection, now stood awkwardly, their instruments of lamentation forgotten, their faces a mixture of confusion and dawning understanding. Some began to whisper among themselves, their voices hushed, filled with an almost reverent awe. "He leaves," one woman breathed, her hand pressed to her mouth, her eyes wide. "He truly leaves." Lazarus, gently disentangling himself from his sister's embrace, turned his gaze back to Jesus. There was no need for words, only a profound, silent acknowledgement, a depth of gratitude that transcended any earthly expression. He saw in Jesus' eyes not triumph, but a quiet, compassionate love, a knowing understanding that encompassed both the pain of his death and the wonder of his return. He felt a deep, abiding peace settle over him, a sense of being utterly protected, utterly cherished. The experience of death, though a blur, had been real, and the return to life, though miraculous, was now his undeniable reality. He was free, not just from the grave clothes, but from the very grip of death itself. Jesus simply nodded, a gentle smile gracing his lips, his gaze conveying a message of profound love and reassurance. He had done what he came to do, revealing the glory of God, demonstrating his power over death, and offering a tangible glimpse of the resurrection and the life. The miracle was complete, not just in the calling forth, but in the full unbinding, the allowing of Lazarus to step back into the world, whole and unhindered. The sun, now higher in the sky, cast long, golden shadows across the dusty path leading away from the tomb. The air, no longer heavy with the scent of decay, seemed to shimmer with a newfound vibrancy. The bleating of distant sheep, the chirping of cicadas, the rustle of olive leaves in the gentle breeze, all these familiar sounds now seemed imbued with a fresh, almost sacred quality, as if the world itself had been reborn alongside Lazarus. Lazarus, still a little unsteady on his feet, but growing stronger with each passing moment, took a hesitant step forward, then another, away from the tomb, away from the shadow of death. His sisters walked beside him, one on each side, their hands linked with his, their faces alight with a joy that was almost unbearable in its intensity. They were not just walking away from a tomb, they were walking into a future that had been snatched from the jaws of despair, a future brimming with the impossible, with the undeniable proof of a love that conquered all. The crowd, still awestruck, slowly began to follow, their murmurs growing into a low hum of excited conversation. Some ran ahead, eager to spread the news, their voices carrying the incredible tale through the village streets. Others walked in quiet contemplation, their minds grappling with the profound implications of what they had witnessed. For many, the world had shifted on its axis in that moment, their understanding of life and death, of power and faith, forever altered. The cold, dark certainty of the grave had been shattered by a voice, and a man had walked free, unbound, into the warm embrace of Lev, a living testament to a miracle that would forever echo in the heart of Bethany. As Lazarus and his sisters walked, the sun warmed his face, a sensation he now cherished with a profound depth he could not have imagined before. He felt the soft dust of the path beneath his feet, the gentle breeze on his skin, the comforting presence of his sisters beside him. Every sensory detail, once taken for granted, was now a precious gift, a vibrant affirmation of his return. He was no longer a man bound by death, but a man unbound by life, a living, breathing miracle, walking towards a future filled with the quiet wonder of simply being. The journey from the tomb was not just a physical one, it was a journey from the deepest despair to the most profound joy, from the silence of death to the symphony of life, a testament to the boundless love that had called him forth and set him free. And as the sun began its slow descent, casting long, peaceful shadows over the village, a sense of deep, abiding peace settled over Lazarus and all who had witnessed the impossible, a quiet understanding that some bonds, even those of death, could be broken by a love so powerful, so divine. The air, which had vibrated with the raw energy of a miracle, now began to soften, settling into the gentle hum of a village evening. The last rays of the Judean sun, no longer harsh and unforgiving, painted the western sky in hues of soft rose and deep violet, casting long, peaceful shadows that stretched across the dusty paths of Bethany. The crowd, once a surging tide of disbelief and wonder, had begun to disperse, not with the usual clamor of a marketplace, but with a hushed reverence, their voices lowered to murmurs, their steps tentative, as if afraid to disturb the sacred quiet that now enveloped the scene. Each person carried away a piece of the impossible, a memory etched deeply into their souls, an image of a man, once dead, now breathing, walking, leaving. Lazarus, still wrapped in the grave clothes, though now loosened and falling away from his body, stood beside Jesus, a hand gently resting on his arm. His sisters, Mary and Martha, clung to him on either side, their faces streaked with tears that were no longer of sorrow but of an overwhelming, incandescent joy. The scent of myrrh and aloes, once a poignant reminder of his death, now clung to him like a fragrant whisper of his return, a testament to the journey he had taken and the journey he had completed. He felt the warmth of their hands, the soft fabric of their tunics against his skin, the beat of their hearts, and it was all so profoundly real, so utterly present, that the 4 days in the tomb felt like a distant, half-forgotten dream, a shadow from which he had emerged into the most brilliant light. Mary, her face buried against his shoulder, wept silently, her body trembling with the release of grief and the embrace of pure, unadulterated happiness. Her tears, once a river of despair, now flowed as a spring of gratitude, washing away the last vestiges of fear that had gripped her heart. She could feel the solid warmth of his flesh, the gentle rise and fall of his chest beneath her cheek, the familiar, comforting scent of him that was no longer mingled with the dry, earthy smell of the tomb. It was her brother, whole and alive, a miracle held within her arms, a leaving prayer answered. She remembered the crushing weight of sorrow, the hollow ache in her chest, the desperate plea she had uttered to Jesus, and now, looking into her brother's eyes, she saw not the vacant stare of death, but the familiar spark of his gentle spirit, a soul returned. Martha, ever the practical one, though her heart was overflowing with an emotion too vast for words, found herself smoothing the grave clothes that still clung to Lazarus, her fingers tracing the rough linen, a silent acknowledgement of the journey he had made. She looked at Jesus, her eyes brimming with a mixture of awe and profound understanding. Her earlier words, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died," now echoed in her mind, not as a reproach, but as a testament to the depth of her faith, a faith that had been tested and now forged anew in the crucible of this impossible event. She had believed in his power to heal, but he had shown her a power that transcended even death itself, a power that spoke of eternal life, of a promise far grander than she had ever dared to imagine. The quiet order of her home, so important to her, had been utterly disrupted by death, and now, in this moment, it was restored, but with a new, deeper understanding of the divine order that governed all things. Jesus, with a gentle smile that reached his eyes, looked at Lazarus, then at his sisters, and then out at the remaining villagers, his gaze encompassing them all with a profound compassion. He had allowed the sorrow, the waiting, the despair, not to inflict pain, but to reveal a truth so powerful that it would echo through the ages. He had waited, not out of indifference, but out of a divine purpose, to show them all that he was the resurrection and the life, a truth that transcended the immediate comfort of healing and spoke to the ultimate victory over death itself. His presence was a balm, a quiet strength that permeated the very air, calming the lingering tremors of fear and replacing them with a deep, abiding sense of peace. Lazarus, still somewhat disoriented, yet filled with an inexplicable lightness, felt a profound gratitude bloom within his chest, a sensation unlike any he had known before. He looked at Jesus, his eyes conveying a silent, boundless thanks. The experience of death, though now a blur, had left an indelible mark, a quiet understanding of the veil between worlds, a profound appreciation for the simple breath of life. He felt the cool evening breeze on his skin, smelled the familiar scent of olive trees and baking bread carried on the wind, heard the distant bleating of sheep, and each sensation was a precious gift, a melody of existence he had almost lost. He had walked through the valley of the shadow, and now he stood in the golden light of evening, a living testament to a love that would not let him go. The professional mourners, who had wailed so mournfully just moments before, now stood in stunned silence, their instruments of lamentation forgotten, their faces etched with a mixture of awe and bewilderment. Some quietly slipped away, their understanding shattered, their rituals rendered meaningless by the sheer, undeniable reality before them. Others lingered, their eyes fixed on Lazarus, a new, unsettling question forming in their minds, a challenge to their deepest beliefs about life and death. The air, once filled with their mournful cries, now held only the soft rustle of leaves and the distant chirping of crickets, a gentle symphony of the returning night. As the last vestiges of daylight faded, giving way to the soft glow of the rising moon, the small family, now miraculously complete, moved slowly towards their home. Jesus walked beside them, his presence a comforting anchor in the swirling emotions of the day. The path, once trodden by hurried feet carrying news of illness and death, was now a path of quiet, deliberate steps, each one a testament to renewed life. The scent of the evening meal, prepared by Martha earlier in the day, now seemed to beckon with a promise of warmth and normalcy, a gentle return to the rhythms of life. Inside the familiar, humble home, the flickering oil lamps cast long, dancing shadows on the walls, creating an atmosphere of intimate warmth. Lazarus sat on a low bench, his sisters fussing over him, their hands gentle, their eyes never leaving his face. Mary brought him a cup of cool water, her hand steady as she held it to his lips, watching as he drank, each swallow a profound affirmation of his return. Martha, ever practical, began to prepare a simple meal, her movements imbued with a quiet joy, the clatter of pots and pans a comforting, familiar sound. The house, which had been filled with the heavy silence of grief, now resonated with the soft murmurs of conversation, the gentle sighs of contentment, and the unspoken language of love. The villagers who had lingered, those whose hearts had been touched by the miracle, gathered quietly outside the home, their voices hushed, their faces illuminated by the soft moonlight. They did not demand explanations or further signs, they simply watched, their presence a silent vigil of wonder and contemplation. Some spoke in low tones of the implications of what they had seen, of the power of this man from Nazareth, of the hope that now bloomed in their own hearts, a hope that transcended the fear of death. Others simply sat in quiet reflection, allowing the enormity of the event to settle within them, a seed of faith planted in the fertile ground of their souls. Lazarus, feeling the familiar textures of his home, the comforting weight of his sister's presence, the quiet strength of Jesus nearby, closed his eyes for a moment. He took a deep, shuddering breath, filling his lungs with the sweet, clean air of life. He felt the gentle thrum of his own heartbeat, a steady rhythm that spoke of continuity, of presence, of a future that had been unexpectedly, miraculously, returned to him. The memory of the tomb, the cold, the darkness, the utter stillness, now seemed distant, a dream from which he had been awakened by the most powerful, most loving voice he had ever known. He was no longer merely Lazarus of Bethany, the friend of Jesus, he was Lazarus, the one who had died and lived again, a living symbol of a truth so profound it defied human understanding. As the night deepened, a quiet peace settled over Bethany. The moon, now high in the sky, cast a silver glow over the olive groves, turning the dusty paths into ribbons of light. The air grew cooler, carrying the sweet scent of night-blooming jasmine. Inside the home, the oil lamps burned low, casting a gentle, golden light. Lazarus, surrounded by the love of his family and the quiet strength of his friend, felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over him, a deep, abiding peace that settled into the very core of his being. He had been called forth from the darkness, not just into life, but into a deeper understanding of love, of faith, of the boundless power that held the universe in its embrace. The whisper of hope, which had been a faint, almost imperceptible sound in the darkest hours of grief, now resonated like a clear, steady bell in the heart of Bethany. The promise of dawn, not just the physical rising of the sun, but the dawn of a new understanding, a new era of possibility, hung in the cool night air. The world outside the small home seemed to hold its breath, listening to the quiet miracle that had unfolded, a testament to a love that conquered all, even the finality of death. And as the stars began to pepper the vast, inky canvas of the Judean sky, each one a tiny, shimmering beacon of light, a profound stillness descended, a gentle, comforting quiet that invited rest, reflection, and the quiet contemplation of a truth so wondrous, so divine, that it could only be whispered on the wind, a secret shared between the heart and the heavens. The village, once a place of sorrow, now slept under the watchful gaze of a miracle, cradled in the promise of eternal life, a promise whispered in the gentle rustle of the olive leaves and carried on the soft breath of the night. The morning sun, a gentle painter, began to brush the eastern sky with hues of rose and gold, slowly chasing away the lingering shadows of the night and illuminating the familiar contours of Bethany. Within the small, humble home, a different kind of dawn was breaking, one filled not with the chill of grief but with the warmth of an impossible, tender joy that still felt fragile, like a butterfly newly emerged from its chrysalis. Lazarus, though alive and breathing, still bore the faint, almost imperceptible scent of the tomb, a subtle earthy aroma that clung to his garments and hair, a silent, poignant reminder of the journey he had just made and the miraculous return he had experienced. He sat quietly by the window, his gaze fixed on the nascent light filtering through the olive trees, his sisters, Martha and Mary, hovering near him, their hearts overflowing with an emotion so profound it defied simple categorization, a blend of awe, relief, and an almost fearful gratitude. Martha, ever practical, had already begun to stir the morning fire, the crackling flames casting dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls, preparing a simple breakfast of unleavened bread and olives, her movements imbued with a newfound lightness, a grace that had been absent for many days. Her usual bustling energy, once driven by anxiety and sorrow, was now channeled into acts of loving service, each task performed with a quiet reverence, as if even the mundane act of kneading dough had been sanctified by the miracle that had touched their lives. She glanced at Lazarus, a soft smile gracing her lips, a smile that crinkled the corners of her eyes, eyes that had been so recently swollen with tears, and now shimmered with an unspeakable tenderness, reflecting the flickering firelight. Mary, meanwhile, sat closer to Lazarus, her hand resting lightly on his arm, as if needing the constant physical reassurance of his presence, her fingers tracing the veins beneath his skin, marveling at the warmth that emanated from him, a warmth that had been so chillingly absent just hours before. She spoke in hushed tones, her voice a melodic whisper, recounting the events of the previous day, the arrival of Jesus, the confrontation at the tomb, the command, the impossible sound of his name echoing through the silence, and then, the slow, agonizing, glorious emergence. Lazarus listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration, as if trying to piece together fragments of a dream, a memory that was both his and not his, a journey into a realm beyond human comprehension, a place from which he had been so dramatically recalled. He remembered only a profound, encompassing darkness, a sense of quietude, an absence of pain or sensation, and then, a sudden, piercing light, a voice that resonated not just in his ears but in the very core of his being, a voice that pulled him back, gently yet irresistibly, from the precipice of oblivion. The Jewish mourners, those who had come from Jerusalem and the surrounding villages to offer their condolences, had slowly begun to disperse throughout the night, their initial shock giving way to a bewildered awe, their hushed conversations carrying whispers of the impossible, of a prophet unlike any other, of a power that defied the natural order. Some had departed immediately, their hearts filled with a mixture of fear and wonder, eager to carry the astonishing news back to their communities, to the bustling streets of Jerusalem, to the ears of those who would undoubtedly dismiss it as a fanciful tale. Others, however, lingered, drawn by an irresistible curiosity, a deep-seated need to witness the aftermath, to see with their own eyes the man who had been dead, to touch the hand that had been cold, to hear the voice that had been silent, seeking some tangible proof, some undeniable confirmation of the miracle. Jesus, having spent a quiet moment of reflection and prayer in the garden outside, now re-entered the small home, his presence filling the space with a serene authority, a gentle strength that settled the lingering anxieties in the room. He met Lazarus's gaze, a profound understanding passing between them, a silent acknowledgement of the extraordinary bond that had been forged, not just in Liev, but in the very face of death itself. He spoke softly, his words a balm to their still reeling spirits, offering comfort and reassurance, reminding them that this miracle was not merely for Lazarus, or for Martha and Mary, but for all who would believe, a testament to the boundless love of God and the promise of eternal Liev that transcended the temporal boundaries of human existence. Thomas, known as Didymus, sat in a corner, his face a canvas of complex emotions, his usual skepticism warring with the undeniable reality before him. He watched Lazarus, his eyes narrowed, searching for any sign of deception, any flaw in the incredible narrative, yet finding none, only the quiet, bewildered presence of a man who had truly returned from the grave. His mind, accustomed to logic and reason, struggled to reconcile this impossible event with his understanding of the world, and a tremor of doubt, not in the miracle itself, but in his own capacity to fully comprehend such divine power, ran through him, leaving him both unsettled and profoundly moved. He had witnessed many wonders, had heard the teachings of Jesus, but this was different, a direct confrontation with the ultimate human fear, a triumph over the finality that defined their mortal lives. The sun climbed higher, casting longer, sharper shadows across the dusty paths of Bethany, and the village began to awaken fully, the sounds of daily leaves slowly resuming, the distant braying of a donkey, the rhythmic pounding of a mortar and pestle, the chatter of women drawing water from the communal well. Yet, beneath this veneer of normalcy, an undercurrent of excitement and apprehension rippled through the community, the news of Lazarus's resurrection spreading like wildfire, carried on the morning breeze, whispered from door to door, reaching even the ears of those who had not been present at the tomb. People began to gather outside the home, a respectful distance maintained, their faces a mixture of awe and fear, their eyes darting towards the windows, hoping for a glimpse of the man who had defied death, eager to witness the living proof of such an extraordinary event. Inside, Martha, having served the simple meal, now watched Lazarus eat, her heart swelling with a quiet, overwhelming joy, a joy so profound it brought tears to her eyes, tears of gratitude that tasted sweeter than any food. She remembered the bitterness of her grief, the hollow ache in her chest, the despair that had threatened to consume her, and now, seeing her brother, whole and alive, partaking of the morning's nourishment, she felt an unshakable peace settle within her, a peace that transcended all earthly understanding. Mary, ever the contemplative one, sat silently, her gaze fixed on Jesus, a deep reverence etched upon her features, her mind grappling with the implications of what had transpired, understanding that this was not merely a personal miracle for their family, but a profound revelation, a sign of something far grander, a glimpse into the very heart of divine love and power. Lazarus, having finished his meal, stood and walked to the doorway, his steps still a little hesitant, as if testing the solidity of the earth beneath his feet, his eyes adjusting to the bright morning light. He looked out at the assembled crowd, their faces a mosaic of emotions, curiosity, wonder, trepidation, and a faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips, a smile born of a profound humility, a quiet acceptance of his new, extraordinary reality. He was no longer just Lazarus of Bethany, the quiet brother, the beloved friend. He was now a living testament, a walking miracle, a beacon of hope for all who would hear his story, a story that would echo through the ages, a powerful affirmation of life's triumph over death. The air in Bethany, usually thick with the scent of dust and baking bread, now carried an electric charge, a palpable sense of anticipation, as if the very atmosphere had been altered by the divine intervention. The villagers, emboldened by the sight of Lazarus, began to murmur amongst themselves, their voices growing louder, their questions more insistent, eager to hear the tale directly from the lips of those who had witnessed it. Some spoke of the prophecies, of the coming Messiah, wondering if this was the sign they had long awaited, the ultimate proof of his divine authority. Others, more cautious, whispered of sorcery, of dark powers, their fear mingling with their awe, unable to fully grasp the benevolent nature of the miracle they had just witnessed. Jesus, sensing the growing unrest, the mixture of fervent belief and lingering doubt that permeated the crowd, decided it was time to address them, to offer clarity and understanding, to guide their hearts towards the truth. He stepped forward, his presence commanding attention without uttering a single word, his eye sweeping over the assembled faces, a gentle compassion radiating from him, a profound understanding of their human frailties and their yearning for meaning. He spoke of the glory of God, of the boundless love that had prompted this extraordinary act, reminding them that this miracle was not merely a display of power, but a profound lesson, a testament to the resurrection and the life that he embodied, a promise of eternal hope for all who would place their faith in him. His words, though gentle, carried an undeniable authority, a resonance that quieted the murmuring crowd, drawing them in, captivating their attention, speaking directly to the deepest longings of their souls. He spoke not of magic or sorcery, but of faith, of belief, of the divine purpose behind every event, every miracle, every act of compassion. He explained that Lazarus's return was a sign, a powerful demonstration of God's sovereignty over death, a precursor to a greater resurrection, a promise of life everlasting for those who would follow him. The villagers listened, their expression shifting from skepticism to wonder, from fear to a dawning comprehension, their hearts slowly opening to the profound truth that was being laid before them. As the morning wore on, the news of Lazarus's resurrection began its inevitable journey beyond Bethany, carried by eager messengers and bewildered travelers, spreading like ripples across the tranquil surface of a pond. The dusty road leading to Jerusalem, usually bustling with merchants and pilgrims, now saw an increased flow of individuals, some rushing to share the incredible tale, others drawn by an irresistible urge to see for themselves, to witness the living proof of such an unprecedented event. The air hummed with hushed conversations, with exclamations of disbelief and awe, as the story of the man who had been dead for 4 days and was now alive again made its way through the Judean countryside, sparking fervent discussions and igniting both hope and controversy. Within the small home in Bethany, a different kind of quiet settled, a peaceful aftermath following the morning's intense emotions. Martha busied herself with domestic tasks, her movements imbued with a newfound serenity, her heart still singing with gratitude, while Mary sat close to Lazarus, her hand still resting gently on his, a silent communion passing between them. Lazarus, though physically present, seemed to be somewhere else, his gaze often distant, reflective, as if still processing the enormity of his experience, the journey he had taken to the very edge of existence and back. He spoke little, his words measured, thoughtful, as if each one held a new weight, a deeper meaning, having been retrieved from the silence of the tomb. Jesus, observing the quiet interactions, the subtle shifts in their demeanors, understood the profound impact this miracle had wrought, not just on Lazarus, but on his sisters, on their faith, on their entire understanding of life and death. He knew that this event, while a source of immense joy and affirmation for many, would also stir the waters of opposition, drawing the attention of those who sought to discredit him, to silence his message. The timing, though seemingly delayed to human eyes, had been perfect, allowing the full weight of the miracle to be felt, to demonstrate God's glory in the most undeniable way possible. Thomas, still grappling with the intellectual and spiritual implications of what he had witnessed, approached Jesus, his brow furrowed in thought, his eyes searching for answers. He spoke of the fear that this miracle would undoubtedly provoke among the religious authorities in Jerusalem, the inevitable backlash that would follow such a blatant challenge to their established order. Jesus listened patiently, his gaze unwavering, acknowledging the truth in Thomas's concerns, yet radiating a profound peace, a steadfast resolve that transcended all earthly anxieties. He spoke of the path that lay ahead, a path that would lead to further challenges, to greater sacrifices, but ultimately to the fulfillment of God's divine plan, a plan that encompassed not just Lazarus's resurrection, but the ultimate triumph over death itself. The afternoon sun, now high in the sky, cast long, slender shadows from the olive trees, and the air grew warmer, carrying the faint scent of thyme and wild herbs. Lazarus, feeling a renewed strength, ventured outside, walking slowly through the small garden, his senses acutely aware of every detail, the rough texture of the olive bark, the delicate perfume of a blooming jasmine vine, the gentle hum of a bee gathering nectar. Everything seemed sharper, more vibrant, more precious, as if having been granted a second chance to experience the world, he now perceived it with a heightened sensitivity, a profound appreciation for the simple beauty of creation. He touched a leaf, felt the warmth of the sun on his skin, and a quiet sense of wonder filled him, a deep gratitude for the breath in his lungs, the blood flowing through his veins, the beating of his heart. Martha, watching him from the doorway, felt a surge of protective love, a fierce determination to cherish every moment, every shared glance, every quiet conversation. The memory of the 4 days of grief, the agonizing weight, the despair that had threatened to consume her, now seemed like a distant nightmare, replaced by the vibrant reality of her brother's presence. She knew that their lives would never be the same, that this miracle had irrevocably altered their path, placing them at the center of a divine narrative, a story that would continue to unfold with profound implications. Mary, ever the contemplative one, found a quiet spot beneath the shade of an old fig tree, her gaze fixed on the distant hills, her mind wrestling with the deeper spiritual meaning of Lazarus's resurrection. She understood that this was not merely a personal triumph over death, but a powerful sign, a foreshadowing of a greater resurrection, a promise of eternal life that transcended the temporal boundaries of human existence. Her heart, once heavy with sorrow, now swelled with a profound sense of hope, a quiet conviction that death was not the end, but merely a transition, a doorway to a more glorious reality. She reflected on Jesus' words, "I am the resurrection and the life," and those words resonated within her, filling her with a deep, abiding peace, a peace that surpassed all understanding. As the day began to wane, the setting sun painting the western sky with fiery hues of orange and crimson, a sense of quiet anticipation settled over Bethany. The crowds had thinned, many having returned to their homes, carrying with them the astonishing tale, eager to share it with their families and friends. Yet, a core group of believers, drawn by an irresistible spiritual pull, remained, their hearts filled with a mixture of awe and fervent devotion, their faith deepened and strengthened by the undeniable miracle they had witnessed. They gathered in small groups, discussing the events of the day in hushed tones, their voices filled with wonder, their eyes reflecting the fading light of the day and the dawning light of a new understanding. Jesus, having spent the afternoon in quiet conversation with his disciples, preparing them for the challenges that lay ahead, now joined Lazarus, Martha, and Mary for a simple evening meal. The atmosphere at the table was one of profound gratitude, of quiet communion, a sacred space where the extraordinary had become the ordinary, where the impossible had been made real. Lazarus, though still somewhat subdued, spoke more freely, sharing fragments of his experience, not of a terrifying void, but of a profound quietude, a peaceful darkness from which he had been gently, yet powerfully, called back. He spoke of the voice, Jesus' voice, as a beacon, a light that had pierced the darkness, drawing him back to the world of the living, to the warmth of his sister's embrace, to the vibrant tapestry of life. Martha, ever the gracious hostess, ensured that everyone was comfortable, her movements fluid and purposeful, her heart overflowing with a quiet joy, a joy that radiated from her very being. She looked at Lazarus, truly looked at him, and saw not the man who had been dead, but her beloved brother, restored and whole, a living testament to the boundless love and power of their Lord. Mary, meanwhile, sat at Jesus' feet, her gaze fixed on him, absorbing every word, every nuance of his presence, her spirit deeply nourished by his wisdom and compassion. She understood that this miracle was not merely an isolated event, but a profound revelation, a glimpse into the very heart of God's plan for humanity, a promise of eternal life that transcended the temporal boundaries of human existence. The evening deepened, and the stars began to emerge, one by one, puncturing the velvet darkness of the Judean sky, each one a tiny, shimmering beacon of light, reflecting the profound wonder that had unfolded in Bethany. The air grew cooler, carrying the sweet scent of night-blooming jasmine and the distant bleating of sheep, a gentle lullaby that settled over the village. The small home, once a place of profound sorrow, now resonated with a quiet peace, a deep sense of gratitude, a testament to a love that had conquered all, even the finality of death. The miracle of Lazarus's resurrection, a truth so wondrous, so divine, was not merely a story to be told, but a living reality, a profound affirmation of faith, a promise whispered on the gentle night breeze, a secret shared between the heart and the heavens, cradling the village in the promise of eternal life. As the moon, a silver disk, ascended higher into the inky expanse, casting long, ethereal shadows across the olive groves, a profound stillness settled over Bethany, a quietude born of wonder and reverence. The sounds of the village had long since faded, replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant chirping of crickets, creating a natural symphony that invited introspection and peace. Within the small home, the oil lamps cast a soft, warm glow, illuminating the faces of those gathered, their expressions reflecting a quiet contemplation, a deep processing of the day's extraordinary events. Lazarus, now resting peacefully, his breath even and deep, was a living embodiment of the impossible, his presence a constant, tangible reminder of the divine power that had touched their lives. Martha, having ensured that all were comfortable, sat by the hearth, her hands folded in her lap, her gaze fixed on the dancing flames, her mind replaying the moments of the previous day, the overwhelming despair, the fervent prayer, the sudden, glorious reversal of fate. She remembered the chill of the tomb, the crushing weight of the stone, the utter finality of death, and then, the electrifying command, the tremor in the earth, the impossible sound of her brother's name echoing from the darkness. Her heart swelled with an emotion so profound it brought tears to her eyes, tears not of sorrow, but of an overwhelming, boundless gratitude, a deep and abiding faith that had been tested and proven true. The practical Martha, always concerned with the affairs of this world, now carried within her a quiet certainty of the world to come, a profound understanding of the spiritual realities that transcended earthly concerns. Mary, ever the contemplative one, remained seated at Jesus' feet, her head bowed in quiet reverence, her spirit deeply nourished by his presence, by the wisdom and compassion that radiated from him. She reflected on the implications of Lazarus' resurrection, not just for their family, but for all humanity, understanding that this was a powerful sign, a profound revelation of God's love and his ultimate victory over death. Her mind, usually prone to deep introspection, now soared with a newfound clarity, a profound understanding of the promise of eternal life, a truth that had been made manifest in their very home, in the very person of her beloved brother. The fragrance of the spikenard, though long since faded from her hair, seemed to linger in her memory, a poignant reminder of her devotion, a devotion that had only deepened with the unfolding of this divine miracle. Jesus, observing their quiet reflections, their processing of the profound truth that had been revealed, spoke softly, his voice a gentle balm in the stillness of the night. He spoke of the journey that lay ahead, not just for them, but for all who would choose to follow him, a journey that would be filled with both challenges and triumphs, with moments of doubt and moments of unwavering faith. He reminded them that this miracle, while astonishing, was but a glimpse of the greater glory to come, a foreshadowing of his own ultimate triumph over death, a promise of resurrection for all who believed. His words, though spoken in hushed tones, carried an undeniable power, a resonance that settled deep within their hearts, strengthening their resolve, deepening their understanding. Thomas, still wrestling with the intellectual and spiritual implications of what he had witnessed, approached Jesus, his brow furrowed in thought, his eyes searching for answers, for a deeper understanding of the divine plan. He spoke of the inevitable opposition that this miracle would provoke, the fear and anger it would stir among the religious authorities in Jerusalem, those who clung to their traditions and their power, unable to comprehend or accept such a radical display of divine authority. Jesus listened patiently, his gaze unwavering, acknowledging the truth in Thomas's concerns, yet radiating a profound peace, a steadfast resolve that transcended all earthly anxieties. He spoke of the path that lay ahead, a path that would lead to further challenges, to greater sacrifices, but ultimately to the fulfillment of God's divine plan, a plan that encompassed not just Lazarus's resurrection, but the ultimate triumph over death itself, a victory that would usher in a new era of hope and redemption for all mankind. The hours of the night slowly unwound, marked only by the gentle rhythm of breathing and the soft flickering of the oil lamps, as the small group in Bethany sat in quiet communion, their hearts and minds grappling with the profound implications of the miracle they had witnessed. The air, once heavy with grief, now hummed with a quiet sense of wonder, a deep and abiding peace that settled over the home, enveloping them in its gentle embrace. The story of Lazarus's resurrection, a tale of divine power and boundless love, was not merely a historical event, but a living truth, a powerful affirmation of faith, a promise whispered on the gentle night breeze, a secret shared between the heart and the heavens, cradling the village in the promise of eternal life, a promise that echoed in the gentle rustle of the olive leaves and carried on the soft breath of the night. As the first faint streaks of dawn began to paint the eastern sky, signaling the approach of a new day, a quiet sense of renewal permeated the small home in Bethany. The night, though filled with profound reflection, had also brought a deep and restorative peace, allowing the hearts and minds of those gathered to process the extraordinary events that had unfolded. Lazarus, now fully awake and refreshed, carried himself with a quiet dignity, his eyes reflecting a newfound depth, a profound understanding born of his journey to the very edge of existence and back. He moved with a gentle grace, his steps no longer hesitant, but imbued with a quiet purpose, as if each movement was a testament to the preciousness of life, a silent hymn of gratitude. Martha, ever the practical one, had already begun to prepare a simple morning meal, the rhythmic sounds of her work a comforting presence in the quiet home. Her movements, though still efficient, were imbued with a lightness, a grace that spoke of a heart unburdened by grief, overflowing instead with a quiet, boundless joy. She glanced at Lazarus, a soft smile gracing her lips, her eyes shining with an unspeakable tenderness, a deep and abiding love that had been tested by the shadow of death and emerged stronger, more vibrant than ever before. The scent of freshly baked bread, warm and inviting, began to fill the air, mingling with the subtle, earthy aroma that still clung faintly to Lazarus, a poignant reminder of his miraculous return. Mary, meanwhile, sat quietly beside Lazarus, her hand resting lightly on his arm, a silent communion passing between them, a deep understanding that transcended words. She spoke in hushed tones, her voice a melodic whisper, sharing her reflections on the profound spiritual implications of his resurrection, the powerful message of hope and eternal life that it conveyed. Lazarus listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration, as if trying to piece together fragments of a dream, a memory that was both his and not his, a journey into a realm beyond human comprehension, a place from which he had been so dramatically recalled. He remembered only a profound, encompassing darkness, a sense of quietude, an absence of pain or sensation, and then, a sudden, piercing light, a voice that resonated not just in his ears but in the very core of his being, a voice that pulled him back, gently yet irresistibly, from the precipice of oblivion. The Jewish mourners, those who had lingered in Bethany, drawn by an irresistible curiosity, now began to gather outside the home once more, their numbers growing as news of Lazarus's continued presence spread through the village. Their faces were a mixture of awe and trepidation, their hushed conversations carrying whispers of the impossible, of a prophet unlike any other, of a power that defied the natural order. Some spoke of the prophesies, of the coming Messiah, wondering if this was the sign they had long awaited, the ultimate proof of his divine authority. Others, more cautious, whispered of sorcery, of dark powers, their fear mingling with their awe, unable to fully grasp the benevolent nature of the miracle they had just witnessed. Jesus, having spent a quiet moment of prayer in the garden, now re-entered the small home, his presence filling the space with a serene authority, a gentle strength that settled the lingering anxieties in the room. He met Lazarus's gaze, a profound understanding passing between them, a silent acknowledgement of the extraordinary bond that had been forged, not just in life, but in the very face of death itself. He spoke softly, his words a balm to their still reeling spirits, offering comfort and reassurance, reminding them that this miracle was not merely for Lazarus, or for Martha and Mary, but for all who would believe, a testament to the boundless love of God and the promise of eternal life that transcended the temporal boundaries of human existence. Thomas, known as Didymus, sat in a corner, his face a canvas of complex emotions, his usual skepticism warring with the undeniable reality before him. He watched Lazarus, his eyes narrowed, searching for any sign of deception, any flaw in the incredible narrative, yet finding none, only the quiet, bewildered presence of a man who had truly returned from the grave. His mind, accustomed to logic and reason, struggled to reconcile this impossible event with his understanding of the world, and a tremor of doubt, not in the miracle itself, but in his own capacity to fully comprehend such divine power, ran through him, leaving him both unsettled and profoundly moved. He had witnessed many wonders, had heard the teachings of Jesus, but this was different, a direct confrontation with the ultimate human fear, a triumph over the finality that defined their mortal lives. The sun climbed higher, casting longer, sharper shadows across the dusty paths of Bethany, and the village began to awaken fully, the sounds of daily leaves slowly resuming, the distant braying of a donkey, the rhythmic pounding of a mortar and pestle, the chatter of women drawing water from the communal well. Yet, beneath this veneer of normalcy, an undercurrent of excitement and apprehension rippled through the community, the news of Lazarus's resurrection continuing to spread like wildfire, carried on the morning breeze, whispered from door to door, reaching even the ears of those who had not been present at the tomb. People began to gather outside the home, a respectful distance maintained, their faces a mixture of awe and fear, their eyes darting towards the windows, hoping for a glimpse of the man who had defied death, eager to witness the living proof of such an extraordinary event. Inside, Martha, having served the simple meal, now watched Lazarus eat, her heart swelling with a quiet, overwhelming joy, a joy so profound it brought tears to her eyes, tears of gratitude that tasted sweeter than any food. She remembered the bitterness of her grief, the hollow ache in her chest, the despair that had threatened to consume her, and now, seeing her brother, whole and live, partaking of the morning's nourishment, she felt an unshakable peace settle within her, a peace that transcended all earthly understanding. Mary, ever the contemplative one, sat silently, her gaze fixed on Jesus, a deep reverence etched upon her features, her mind grappling with the implications of what had transpired, understanding that this was not merely a personal miracle for their family, but a profound revelation, a sign of something far grander, a glimpse into the very heart of divine love and power. Lazarus, having finished his meal, stood and walked to the doorway, his steps still a little hesitant, as if testing the solidity of the earth beneath his feet, his eyes adjusting to the bright morning light. He looked out at the assembled crowd, their faces a mosaic of emotions, curiosity, wonder, trepidation, and a faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips, a smile born of a profound humility, a quiet acceptance of his new, extraordinary reality. He was no longer just Lazarus of Bethany, the quiet brother, the beloved friend. He was now a living testament, a walking miracle, a beacon of hope for all who would hear his story, a story that would echo through the ages, a powerful affirmation of life's triumph over death. The air in Bethany, usually thick with the scent of dust and baking bread, now carried an electric charge, a palpable sense of anticipation, as if the very atmosphere had been altered by the divine intervention. The villagers, emboldened by the sight of Lazarus, began to murmur amongst themselves, their voices growing louder, their questions more insistent, eager to hear the tale directly from the lips of those who had witnessed it. Some spoke of the prophecies, of the coming Messiah, wondering if this was the sign they had long awaited, the ultimate proof of his divine authority. Others, more cautious, whispered of sorcery, of dark powers, their fear mingling with their awe, unable to fully grasp the benevolent nature of the miracle they had just witnessed. Jesus, sensing the growing unrest, the mixture of fervent belief and lingering doubt that permeated the crowd, decided it was time to address them, to offer clarity and understanding, to guide their hearts towards the truth. He stepped forward, his presence commanding attention without uttering a single word, his eyes sweeping over the assembled faces, a gentle compassion radiating from him, a profound understanding of their human frailties and their yearning for meaning. He spoke of the glory of God, of the boundless love that had prompted this extraordinary act, reminding them that this miracle was not merely a display of power, but a profound lesson, a testament to the resurrection and the life that he embodied, a promise of eternal hope for all who would place their faith in him. His words, though gentle, carried an undeniable authority, a resonance that quieted the murmuring crowd, drawing them in, captivating their attention, speaking directly to the deepest longings of their souls. He spoke not of magic or sorcery, but of faith, of belief, of the divine purpose behind every event, every miracle, every act of compassion. He explained that Lazarus's return was a sign, a powerful demonstration of God's sovereignty over death, a precursor to a greater resurrection, a promise of life everlasting for those who would follow him. The villagers listened, their expression shifting from skepticism to wonder, from fear to a dawning comprehension, their hearts slowly opening to the profound truth that was being laid before them. As the morning wore on, the news of Lazarus's resurrection began its inevitable journey beyond Bethany, carried by eager messengers and bewildered travelers, spreading like ripples across the tranquil surface of a pond. The dusty road leading to Jerusalem, usually bustling with merchants and pilgrims, now saw an increased flow of individuals, some rushing to share the incredible tale, others drawn by an irresistible urge to see for themselves, to witness the living proof of such an unprecedented event. The air hummed with hushed conversations, with exclamations of disbelief and awe, as the story of the man who had been dead for 4 days and was now alive again made its way through the Judean countryside, sparking fervent discussions and igniting both hope and controversy. Within the small home in Bethany, a different kind of quiet settled, a peaceful aftermath following the morning's intense emotions. Martha busied herself with domestic tasks, her movements imbued with a newfound serenity, her heart still singing with gratitude, while Mary sat close to Lazarus, her hand still resting gently on his, a silent communion passing between them. Lazarus, though physically present, seemed to be somewhere else, his gaze often distant, reflective, as if still processing the enormity of his experience, the journey he had taken to the very edge of existence and back. He spoke little, his words measured, thoughtful, as if each one held a new weight, a deeper meaning, having been retrieved from the silence of the tomb. Jesus, observing the quiet interactions, the subtle shifts in their demeanors, understood the profound impact this miracle had wrought, not just on Lazarus, but on his sisters, on their faith, on their entire understanding of life and death. He knew that this event, while a source of immense joy and affirmation for many, would also stir the waters of opposition, drawing the attention of those who sought to discredit him, to silence his message. The timing, though seemingly delayed to human eyes, had been perfect, allowing the full weight of the miracle to be felt, to demonstrate God's glory in the most undeniable way possible. Thomas, still grappling with the intellectual and spiritual implications of what he had witnessed, approached Jesus, his brow furrowed in thought, his eyes searching for answers. He spoke of the fear that this miracle would undoubtedly provoke among the religious authorities in Jerusalem, the inevitable backlash that would follow such a blatant challenge to their established order. Jesus listened patiently, his gaze unwavering, yet radiating a profound peace, a steadfast resolve that transcended all earthly anxieties. He spoke of the path that lay ahead, a path that would lead to further challenges, to greater sacrifices, but ultimately to the fulfillment of God's divine plan, a plan that encompassed not just Lazarus's resurrection, but the ultimate triumph over death itself. The afternoon sun, now high in the sky, cast long, slender shadows from the olive trees, and the air grew warmer, carrying the faint scent of thyme and wild herbs. Lazarus, feeling a renewed strength, ventured outside, walking slowly through the small garden, his senses acutely aware of every detail, the rough texture of the olive bark, the delicate perfume of a blooming jasmine vine, the gentle hum of a bee gathering nectar. Everything seemed sharper, more vibrant, more precious, as if having been granted a second chance to experience the world, he now perceived it with a heightened sensitivity, a profound appreciation for the simple beauty of creation. He touched a leaf, felt the warmth of the sun on his skin, and a quiet sense of wonder filled him, a deep gratitude for the breath in his lungs, the blood flowing through his veins, the beating of his heart. Martha, watching him from the doorway, felt a surge of protective love, a fierce determination to cherish every moment, every shared glance, every quiet conversation. The memory of the 4 days of grief, the agonizing weight, the despair that had threatened to consume her, now seemed like a distant nightmare, replaced by the vibrant reality of her brother's presence. She knew that their lives would never be the same, that this miracle had irrevocably altered their path, placing them at the center of a divine narrative, a story that would continue to unfold with profound implications. Mary, ever the contemplative one, found a quiet spot beneath the shade of an old fig tree, her gaze fixed on the distant hills, her mind wrestling with the deeper spiritual meaning of Lazarus's resurrection. She understood that this was not merely a personal triumph over death, but a powerful sign, a foreshadowing of a greater resurrection, a promise of eternal life that transcended the temporal boundaries of human existence. Her heart, once heavy with sorrow, now swelled with a profound sense of hope, a quiet conviction that death was not the end, but merely a transition, a doorway to a more glorious reality. She reflected on Jesus' words, "I am the resurrection and the life," and those words resonated within her, filling her with a deep, abiding peace, a peace that surpassed all understanding. As the day began to wane, the setting sun painting the western sky with fiery hues of orange and crimson, a sense of quiet anticipation settled over Bethany. The crowds had thinned, many having returned to their homes, carrying with them the astonishing tale, eager to share it with their families and friends. Yet, a core group of believers, drawn by an irresistible spiritual pull, remained, their hearts filled with a mixture of awe and fervent devotion, their faith deepened and strengthened by the undeniable miracle they had witnessed. They gathered in small groups, discussing the events of the day in hushed tones, their voices filled with wonder, their eyes reflecting the fading light of the day and the dawning light of a new understanding. Jesus, having spent the afternoon in quiet conversation with his disciples, preparing them for the challenges that lay ahead, now joined Lazarus, Martha, and Mary for a simple evening meal. The atmosphere at the table was one of profound gratitude, of quiet communion, a sacred space where the extraordinary had become the ordinary, where the impossible had been made real. Lazarus, though still somewhat subdued, spoke more freely, sharing fragments of his experience, not of a terrifying void, but of a profound quietude, a peaceful darkness from which he had been gently, yet powerfully, called back. He spoke of the voice, Jesus' voice, as a beacon, a light that had pierced the darkness, drawing him back to the world of the living, to the warmth of his sister's embrace, to the vibrant tapestry of life. Martha, ever the gracious hostess, ensured that everyone was comfortable, her movements fluid and purposeful, her heart overflowing with a quiet joy, a joy that radiated from her very being. She looked at Lazarus, truly looked at him, and saw not the man who had been dead, but her beloved brother, restored and whole, a living testament to the boundless love and power of their Lord. Mary, meanwhile, sat at Jesus' feet, her gaze fixed on him, absorbing every word, every nuance of his presence, her spirit deeply nourished by his wisdom and compassion. She understood that this miracle was not merely an isolated event, but a profound revelation, a glimpse into the very heart of God's plan for humanity, a promise of eternal life that transcended the temporal boundaries of human existence. The evening deepened, and the stars began to emerge, one by one, puncturing the velvet darkness of the Judean sky, each one a tiny, shimmering beacon of light, reflecting the profound wonder that had unfolded in Bethany. The air grew cooler, carrying the sweet scent of night-blooming jasmine and the distant bleating of sheep, a gentle lullaby that settled over the village. The small home, once a place of profound sorrow, now resonated with a quiet peace, a deep sense of gratitude, a testament to a love that had conquered all, even the finality of death. The miracle of Lazarus's resurrection, a truth so wondrous, so divine, was not merely a story to be told, but a living reality, a powerful affirmation of faith, a promise whispered on the gentle night breeze, a secret shared between the heart and the heavens, cradling the village in the promise of eternal life. The story settles now, like dust after a long journey. Thank you for listening. If you find peace here, we would love to have you back. Tap subscribe so the next story finds you. Until then, sleep deeply and wake rested.